beautiful people. Welcome. How's everybody doing today? This is Neil with Portal to Ascension. I'm extremely excited to be with you guys and to be embarking on a journey through the Maya Empire today. So, how is everybody? Go ahead and let us know in the chat room, us meaning me and all my other selves. So, go ahead and please do let me know where you're from on or off planet in the chat room. Also, change your settings to all panelists and attendees. So if you're in the chat room right now, if you look right above where you're typing, there's a setting that says all panelists. Change that to all panelists and attendees if you want to be able to engage with everyone and you know communicate and interact with anyone besides myself. So who do we have here? We have Mariana from Vancouver, and we have Paul from Ohio. So keep it coming. Let me know. So today, guys, we're going to be exploring the Maya Empire, and this is 3 years really of acquiring footage and images. Actually, 4 years really, because we would have been there for a fourth year last year in 2020 if it wasn't for the current world situation. So quite a lot of footage and experiences down there. And now we're going to start actually taking individuals on tour. We were going to go on tour in November, and I'll show you about it a little bit about it later, but now we've pushed the tour back to 2021. So this is great for anybody who's especially interested in going to the area by yourself or going on tour with us. You get to really kind of have an overall look of not only the entire peninsula, many places, of course, couldn't go to all of them, right? And so you're going to get look of the peninsula as a whole, and you can also learn about the history today, because I really want to have a thorough conversation today about this topic, right? So, and if you would like to, let's all join together in this moment, because as I like to say, and many people do say as well, is that when there's more than it's a really a missed opportunity if there's two or more people together and we're not setting a collective intention to better us, the betterment of ourselves, for all of humanity, for all the cosmos, for all antiquity. So, since we're all here now, gathered from all around the world, let's just take a few moments and just start breathing normally. Breathing in through your nose, out through the mouth. Becoming present with every breath, feeling the air go in through your nostrils, into your lungs, and then exhaling from your throat, out of your mouth. And today we set our intention to expand our consciousness. And through the avenue today, we are expanding our consciousness by understanding the ancient past of an integral part of really of humanity's ancient past. But to be more specific, we're going to be exploring Central America. And these tribes really did come from other places, not just Central America. So as we breathe, we set our intention, whatever intention you may have for this experience, whether it's to have fun, to learn, to go on a vacation, to check out these ancient sites without having to be there right now, for remembering when you went there yourself and how it was, for missing areas that you didn't get to see. And I know there are a good amount of people right now that are actually in Tulum or Playa del Carmen, in those areas. And so they're actually in the peninsula right now, and they're going to be watching this from there. So just set your intention, keep breathing. And on the next inhale, we're going to let out an om. So inhale, deep inhale through the nose. Exhale, om. Om. And do two more. Inhale through the nose. Exhale, om. Om. One last time. Exhale, om. Om. All right. So, interestingly enough, Everybody knows, like, most of you guys know Portal to Ascension. We do conscious spiritual events. Definitely going to put an Om in there somewhere, right? But did you know that the Om is actually connected some way through the Mayan into the Mayan culture? So we're going to get into that a little bit today too, about the Mayan dialect and their language and how it could possibly connect to ancient India. And that's just going to be a little snippet of this presentation here. And if you actually listen to Maya descendants speak, they actually sound like they're speaking ancient Sanskrit. And it's so amazing when they hit these vowels, almost like chants, and some sounds even sound like the chakra chant sounds. So I did that Om for a reason, really to connect these indigenous tribes all the way across on different sides of the planet. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, let you guys know about what's coming up for us at Portal to Ascension. And right now, you are a part of this event here, Journey Through the Maya Empire. We are relaunching, well, we are launching a brand new website within the next couple of weeks. So you're going to see a lot of new things on our site, and it's going to be really amazing, especially the back end archives where you get to view the footage. Coming up next weekend, we have Trisha McCannon, Hidden History of the Goddess, which will be a truly amazing event as well. Everything Trisha does with us has been so epic. And then right after that, on February 6th, we have the first ever Institute for Exoconsciousness 1 day conference, which is an event providing tools and techniques in order to expand your consciousness to include the consciousness of the cosmos, which includes interdimensionals and extraterrestrials. And this nonprofit organization that's dedicated to that with people from all over the world, Rebecca Hardcastle is a key member of it. We're going to be doing their first ever conference on Portal to Ascension. And then right after that, we have William Henry, Love and the Angelic Uprising webinar. And then after that, Kathleen Marden, who is actually the grand niece of Betty and Barney Hill, right? If you guys have heard of that UFO case. So she's an experiencer herself. And then February is our remote viewing month. We have remote viewing project management from someone who actually used to work for those three-letter agencies in order to remote view certain things for them. And then also we have the remote viewing class coming up with Alan Steinfeld, which is going to be a 4-week class. So if you're interested in any of that, go ahead and check it out on the website and sign up over there. And if you can't afford to attend, we do have a donation policy right now, or no one turned away. So please do let me know if you want to attend. Welcome to Journey Through the Maya Empire. And a little bit about Portal to Ascension in case you guys do not know, or if you do know, but you might not know the whole story. I really started creating Portal to Ascension. The group was actually created in 2006, but it wasn't the group Portal to Ascension at that point. It was called 2012 Consciousness, Mind and Evolution and Presence. And you can check out my whole bio really on my website under the About section of Portal to Ascension. But to give you a little synopsis of it, I was raised in the UK in London, West London. I moved to the US when I was 12, born and raised in a Hindu family. My mom's pretty religious, not hardcore fundamentalist, but she's religious. So I grew up in this culture where Hinduism was my religion, but I really didn't truly believe it. Like if I look back at any of it, and I think like, did I ever have a moment where I was connecting to the Hindu gods and really felt like, oh my God, this is my way? I never really had that. I do have like I guess most people, the only times really I was at any of these traditional ceremonies and events that I actually said anything to God was when I was going through a hard time in my life, right? Which I've noticed a lot of people don't really say anything to connect to God until those moments. So it really wasn't anything that was, part of my existence, even though I was raised in it. I didn't really resonate with it. So I moved to the US when I was 12. I went to high school here and then I went to college. And when I went into college, I started discovering a lot of information. I went on an exploration of ancient text. I started exploring the seven tablets of creation, the Sumerian tablets of creation, listening to people like Jordan Maxwell, Nassim Haramein, and then also Jim Self. Those are three people that I connected with in the beginning. And then also William Henry. He was one of the individuals I first started watching. He was on Netflix in 2002, 2003, I think it was. And so I started watching all those videos and eating it up, and they were talking about sound, vibration, frequency, extraterrestrials, ancient civilizations, and how these ancient civilizations connected to religions, right? So I started looking at my own upbringing from a whole entirely different angle, and I actually started embracing Hinduism a little bit, not embracing it as like the one way, but embracing it as I was embracing the history of all religion. And I wanted to find out what the root of all religion is. That was my goal. Portal to Ascension, all the events we've ever created, why you're here right now, and if you've attended any of other events, really they all stemmed from, of course, trauma as a child that I was trying to heal was one thing, but then also it stemmed from me on the search for the root of all religion. If there are so many similarities in all these ancient texts, why are we all talking about our differences all the time? Right? Why do these religions talk about why they're so different and how one way is the right way to heaven and the other way isn't, when they all come from original source? And one a good example of this would be the story of Krishna and the story of Christ. Krishna and Christ, if you look at a list of every single personality trait and life experience and situation, it's almost like check, check, check for Krishna and Jesus. So things like that made me realize, wait a second, the story of Krishna is much older than the story of Jesus. Either this was an older story and they took from that older story, or all of this is BS. So that started my journey into Portal to Ascension. Just 2006, fast forward after years of conspiracy theories and thinking that the elite are out to get me, I shifted, created this group, and by 2008, it became Portal to Ascension. And here's a couple of flyers that of the first two tours that we did. One was called the Galactic Remembrance Tour, where it was a channeling tour where we were doing sound healing in the beginning. That was with my friend Brad Johnson, who channels Adronis. And then we did a sound and vibrational activation tour. So this is really the beginning of Portal to Ascension, doing live events, hitting the road, um, and doing live events, hitting the road, and just basically doing it for donation or just getting enough of ticket sales for one event to take us to another city. So we would go up and down from San Diego all the way to Vancouver multiple times on tour. I did that journey maybe like 5 or 6 times. And that was where we cultivated these experiences of Portal to Ascension events. And then we go forward into 2012, where my wife and I created two events, one in 2012, one in 2013. The first one was called Cosmic Reunion 2012. And you can see Anelia Benz, Bashar, Laura Eisenhower, Cynthia Crawford, they were all a part of it. And then we had Brad Johnson there and some other ones. These are the milestone events that made me realize that we really had something here. Speakers were coming from all over the world to be a part of this, and people were joining it. So 2012, which is interesting, right? Because December 21st, 2012, we're talking about the Mayans today. This Cosmic Reunion event was actually a month before December. The first 2012 one was like a month or two before December 21st, 2012. And it was also the year that Portal to Ascension really had some sort of direction. And now this is our website now that you've all probably been on. And this is how our backend currently looks. And this is how you're going to watch your replays when you go and check out the replay of this event or anything else. And again, in a couple of weeks, it's going to be updated. Now, today we're going to be going through not only videos of us and images, but also mini documentaries. There's around 4 or 5 mini documentaries that we've created in the Yucatan area. So we're going to go through like everything that I really have and a lot of information here today. And if you want to check out any of these documentaries, including documentaries in Peru, Belize, and then soon to be in Morocco, then you can check that out on the member site on our website. So today your tour guides are myself and my wife, Sol. So we're going to be taking you through the Yucatan Peninsula and even into Belize and up into the Chiapas region to take a look at Palenque. And this is an image of my wife and myself at Palenque right there. And then your other tour guide here is going to be our really good friend Jaime that you're going to be introduced to multiple times throughout today. And Jaime is a Maya descendant that we met on our first trip down to the Yucatan, where we stayed in Uxmal, which is spelled Uxmal, which is an hour and 10 minutes south of Merida. And he was actually working at the hotel there, the main hotel, which is called Uxmal Maya Resort. And he was, working the grounds as a lot of people that work there do multiple things, but he was also the resident shaman that was facilitating the temescales, which are the sweat lodges in the Maya resort. And he is a descendant of Maya. His grandfather was a shaman of the local area, and his grandfather used to actually do shamanic rituals, Maya rituals, and also facilitate the mezcales before the hotels and the resorts were actually there. And we're going to dive deep into what happened with these temescales and what is going on now in that area. So this is our friend Jaime. You're going to see him quite a lot. And when we go on the tour, taking people down there in November, Jaime is going to be with us probably for a good chunk of the tour, maybe like up to like maybe a quarter of the tour he's going to be there as well, since he's going to facilitate not only the temescales for people, but also give us a tour of certain areas. So and now Jaime has become such a good friend. His family is good friends with us, and you can see here his family. This is us at I don't even know what the first image is, but that's us just hanging out somewhere. And oh yeah, that's the image that we took with him before we left Yucatan on the left here, before we left the Yucatan the last time that we went. And here is on the right his whole entire family that lives in the heart of the Yucatan in Santa Elena, which is 20 minutes from Uxmal. And these are all Maya descendants, and they've become like a second family down in the Yucatan, where we're going to be working together for a long time and helping build that area, and hopefully helping their family become independent of the hotels and working from there, so that we can create something in the Yucatan that is portal to Ascension, but run by Jaime and his family. And here is the image here of the tour. We were going to go in November of last year, and then we pushed it back. So now it's November of this year, and it actually starts on my birthday. So if it all works out perfectly, we'll be celebrating and all meeting up in Merida, which you're going to see Merida. We're going to be meeting up in Merida on November 17th at night and have my birthday dinner, and then we're going to start the tour from there. And you can find out more about that under our website. So now here we go. Why did I choose the Maya? Right. Well, firstly, and like the utmost reason really is that because I 100% resonate with the area, like so hardcore. When I go there, sometimes I feel like I want to cry. Like I have like just this energy of like remembrance, and I don't say that lightly because I'm not like always having those realizations, and even if I do, I don't really say it. But they're one place in the world that I feel that huge connection to, that I would spend a lot of my life in, and we've already gone there many times because of this, is the Yucatan. And then also, I wanted to explore the ancient Indian connection, because there is something there. My wife had told me for a while that, many similarities to the food that's descendant from the indigenous people in the area, to the people, to the words, have this huge connection to ancient India. And when I'm saying India, I'm talking about India from India, Indio de la India. So we wanted to explore the ancient Indian connection and find out if there was any similarities. And we did actually come across quite a few. It needs a whole entire new presentation, and we need to go back down there again, I feel, to really get some information out in regards to that. But I wanted to find that out. And also, I was curious about Maya architecture and the specific purposes, right? Like all these structures, so many, and they're just called temple this, pyramid of this. And but what would they actually used for beyond what we've been told that they've been used for? Also, why did I choose the Maya area? The accessibility of the ancient sites. Like you can go to many places in the world, even Egypt. There's a lot of accessible sites there, but there's still so much that you can't even see or get to, or is closed off. And in the Yucatan, the sites are just it's a democratic country. It's easy to go there. It's based in tourism. It's very safe in most of the area, and so it's extremely accessible. So it's a really great place to explore. Now, even though I'm saying that, over half of the Maya Peninsula, I think it's safe to say over half of the civilization has not yet been excavated. So they have not either found it, or they're unable to get to it because it's so deep in the jungle. So these things are coming up all the time. So that's another reason there's so many new discoveries occurring often in this area. Like we don't even know, like we only have really scratched the surface when it comes to understanding who these people were. And also, I don't know if you've been told this. When I started learning about Central American indigenous tribes, specifically the Maya, I was told that they vanished. That either one, they just completely disappeared, and people are trying to figure out where they are, right? And or two, the Spanish came, and through disease, the Mayas were wiped out for the most part. So, obviously we've been there and we've connected with Maya people. So, what is the truth behind this whole story of if the Maya had vanished? The Maya civilization, who were they? They occupied southeastern Mexico in the Yucatan and Chiapas, as well as countries of Guatemala and Belize, as well as the western portions of the Honduras and El Salvador. New evidence suggests that the Maya have descendants in North America as well. So we're going to touch on that a little bit, but pretty soon my wife and I should be going and doing some videos and footage to try to figure that part out as well. But you can see here in this image, the orangish reddish color is the extent of the Maya Empire, and it expanded a little more, but that was it for the most part. And then we have the Olmec over there, which were, coexisted with the Maya at one time. That's in the yellow, which is just north, closer to Mexico City, on its way up to Mexico City, and in Veracruz area right there. So we have the Olmec and the Maya Empire. The Maya Empire existed longer than the Olmec, but they did overlap for some time. And the Olmec actually took over some abandoned structures of the Maya. So now, right before we really begin here and delve into the ancient past of the Maya, their culture, their architecture, I want to say this really quick. And the question really here is, why were all the advanced, I got to do my air quotes here, why were all the advanced civilizations south of the border? If you really think about it, when we start seeing advanced pyramid technology, architecture, understanding of acoustics, where does it begin? It begins at the Mexican border, going from the Aztecs and the tribes around there, all the way down to Maya, and then into South America. So you see a lot of advanced structures. So why is it? Why is it that in North America, the U.S. and Canada, why is it that we don't see this advanced society and civilization that exists south of Mexico border? And why is it such a coincidence? Is it just a coincidence that it's not in North America, but as soon as the Spanish speaking countries begin, all of a sudden we start seeing advanced structures? So again, have you ever wondered why all the super advanced civilizations begin south of the Mexican border? And were there advanced civilizations in North America? So, and if you might have heard of the something called the mound builders of North America. Now, the answer to that is there were advanced structures in North America. And this is the artist's interpretation of a structure that is now just currently a mound over there, but this is how it used to look. Cahokia tribe in southern Illinois. So there were pyramids. There's actually accounts of vast civilizations and structures. And when the pilgrims came, some of them were completely abandoned and some of them were extremely thriving. So my what I've realized and come to understand is the reason why we have civilizations that don't look so advanced in North America, but starting in Central and going to South, we have all these advanced structures, is because there was a different policy really in regards to the indigenous tribes from the North and from the South. We have the Northern Europeans, from England, Dutch, France, a lot of them in North America, and whereas in the South, we had the Spaniards and the Portuguese. When the Spaniards and the Portuguese came, even though they had this superiority complex that they were better than, they also intermingled and integrated with the cultures, creating mixed races. And now, all over, of course, South America, and every country has, most of them have predominantly mixed races. A few of them have predominantly indigenous races, but it's because they integrated, they had children with them. But when you go to North America, you see a whole different concept. It was like, you and I cannot integrate with each other because you are lesser than me. So what happened in North America is there was actually an interest in destroying any evidence of advanced civilizations that existed in North America. So you have all these accounts of these pyramids and advanced structures, but then you also have some accounts of how they were destroyed, right? Very few, because even that was wiped out from the history books. We even have accounts of people that found advanced structures in the Grand Canyon. So to answer my own question here is really, there was advanced civilizations throughout all of the Americas that had were architectural geniuses, but in North America they basically destroyed most of them, and a few of them are left, and now some mounds are remaining, but no one's really going to explore them. And the reason for that is because of the separation kind of mentality of us versus them. So, and here's another mound that is a pyramid overgrown with grass that is also in North America. And you may have heard about this one here, and there's a lot of information saying it was a hoax, but there's a lot of information saying it was also true. Like, the fact is that this actually did happen. These individuals, this newspaper did exist, but the hoax is believed that they lied. That's what they believe happened. Not that this story is a hoax, but it actually happened, but they were lying about it. So in 1909, the Arizona Gazette reported that two Smithsonian archaeologists discovered an ancient civilization deep inside a vast Grand Canyon cavern, complete with mummies, Egyptian style artifacts, and Great Pyramids. Although the Smithsonian ascribes the story to urban legend, you can find news clippings online that explore the enormous subterranean cavern system and view numerous rock formations in the canyon with Egyptian names, such as the Tower of Ra and the Chipos Pyramid. And here is the article, just to let you know that it actually does exist, and it is from 1909. Of course, you can find it online and read it really if you want to, but basically it talks about the shrine that they found, the passages that they found, and how it has an Egyptian connection, which is very interesting because, of course, we see a worldwide pyramid culture where they knew similar architectural how to create these structures. They all the way across the world, they were creating similar structures. So having the Egyptian presence in North America could actually make sense. So back to who were the Maya? Well, there were millions of people in the Maya Empire, and there was a forest back then. But it's important to note that the jungle that currently exists in the Maya Peninsula wasn't as thick as it is now. So there wasn't as many trees, as much forestation as there is now. Members of a loose alliance of interconnected city states. The Maya developed a system of writing, as well as a calendar system and sophisticated astronomical charts. They built amazing structures such as in Tikal and in Chichen Itza, as well as roads, reservoirs, irrigation networks, and terraced fields. Their civilization spanned thousands of square miles of jungle across Central America. And here are just a few images of certain areas. We have the one with my wife and myself is in Uxmal. Then the next one here, the big one, is in Kaaba. We're going to go through each of these individually. And this one at the bottom here is also one in Kaaba that I took. In order to really have an understanding and conceptualize the position of the Maya and where they were, it's also important to note the tribes that were around them at the time. There were multiple tribes, and some of the tribes actually became a part of the civilization. But to talk about, the three most notable and well-known tribes, we do have the Olmec that date back all the way to 1600 BC, and their civilization went till 350 BC. So they were around, existing for around 1300 years. A lot of that time, they were actually coexisting with the Maya. The Maya had already been around for 1,000 years at least when the Olmec actually appeared in that area. And then the Olmec existed with them for hundreds of years, 1,000+ years. So the Maya Empire we have here from 2600 BCE up until around 900 CE, which is the Maya Empire. And they migrated from the south. So we see that there's a trajectory of the Maya coming in from the south, from South America, going north, and they adopted a shared cultural wisdom with the Olmec. So there's a lot of trade going on between them, and they flourished. They really did flourish between 1350 BC and 250 AD, which is like 1500 years, flourishing. And in 900 CE, we see a rapid decline of the Maya Empire. They existed in smaller tribes, so they basically went in 900 CE in smaller tribes, and they went deeper into the Maya Peninsula. And then, of course, we have the Aztecs, approximately 1428 CE to 1521 CE, and they migrated from the north. With the help of the Aztecs' rivals, including the Maya, Cortez mounted an offensive against Tenochtitlan, defeating the resistance on August 13, 1521. In all, there was some 240,000 people who had died in the city's conquest. And the Olmec population declined sharply between 400 and 350 BCE, though it is unclear why. Archaeologists speculate that the depopulation was caused by environmental changes, specifically by the settling up of rivers, which choked off the water supply. It's also believed that the Aztecs, and this part here is very interesting because the Aztecs had this whole entire concept of really being a founder race, that they came from these tribes that came out of this cavern, almost like a womb of earth, and they had these origin stories of where they came from. So there was this superiority complex really when it came to the Aztecs, especially against all the other tribes in the area. But they didn't really flourish and pop off until around 1428, thousands of years, really, like after like 3,000 years plus after the Maya were even there. However, the Maya tribes, even though the empire had kind of been dwindling, the Maya tribes did still exist, but deeper into the Yucatan Peninsula. So it is believed that the Aztecs were the second migration from Asia. So you probably heard about the Alaskan land bridge that existed during the last ice age around 13,000 years ago that connected north of Russia to Alaska area. And that is the belief of where all the indigenous tribes of all of Americas came from. It is now in my mind, and I completely know without a reasonable doubt that that is not true. That a lot of them did come from that land bridge, but many people were here already, right? And other ones came from boats to South America, including the Maya, including the Paracas people in Peru, including the Hopi that have direct lineage and ancestry to the Paracas people all the way down in Peru. So that is what the conventional wisdom is telling us, that they came from the second migration. Now, this map here, we can kind of take a look at the migration and the trade routes of, I mean, not the trade routes, sorry, but yes, definitely the migration routes of the Maya. And you can see that starting down deep in Central America, really into Honduras, Belize area, and into Guatemala. And if you follow those green lines up, these are where the migration routes were that took them into north of Mexico. In Maya trade, they traded a lot. It was a really flourishing civilization. You know, in food, they had fish, squash, yams, corn, honey, beans, turkey, vegetables, and of course, cacao. The raw materials, limestone, marble, jade, wood, copper, gold, manufactured goods, even paper, books, furniture, jewelry. So they had a service sector. They exported this service sector as well. They had mathematicians, farming consultants, artisans, architects, astronomers, scribes, and artists who will sell their services. They even had specialized craftsmen that were, usually called upon by royal decree, like the king or the emperor. They also engaged in long trade of almost any other necessities such as salt, potato, stone. So they not only were cultivating and trading all of these items that they had, but they were getting a lot of other things from all over the world. The types of trade varied by region, with specific districts of kingdoms typically specializing in a specific trade which contained workers of every skill set needed to produce the designated specialty. Areas were designated a specialty based on the resources available in the area, which allowed for fast and efficient production and distribution. So that is very interesting to note, that what was actually happening was that not only were they, have trading and has specialized craftsmen that mostly would be called upon when there was an issue that was occurring in the Mayan civilization, and the royal decree would say we need to solve this issue. But the interesting component is that the individuals that had specific crafts would come from certain areas that were the most efficient in those actual crafts. So they were utilizing not only the regions, but also the knowledge that everybody had individually to use their expertise to the best ability, really, so that they could put them into the right projects and be an efficient society, which is something we're completely not doing now. It's not efficient. And this is very interesting as well because Michael Tellinger, that some of you may know of, is a good friend of ours. He actually has something called Ubuntu movement that he has been spearheading, which is a revival of old ways, really. And part of that is that instead of having individual self-sustained intentional communities, you have multiple sustainable communities, and they all specialize in the specific areas. They grow what's good in their area, they build what's good in their area, and you create a network within bigger communities with multiple communities where you utilize the efficiency of each of these cities or villages. So that's what they were doing. Now, let's take a step back here and just take a look and take in the image here that I got from Google Maps of, you know, really the area that had the Mayan civilization plus many more. We got the whole of Mexico there going all the way down to Panama. But right in the middle, right there, is what you can see as really where the Maya civilization thrived. And you can see I have a little star there in in Playa del Carmen because it's like such a beautiful place that I'll go back to. I think I marked it down when I was over there. So Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, a little bit into El Salvador, the Yucatan Peninsula, going all the way up into Tabasco. if you can see this right here, and then Chapas right here. The excavation of these sites, again, the jungle was not as thick as it is in ancient times. Small sites are connected and a bigger part of cities. So the right now, if you were to go down to Yucatan and explore multiple areas, you might find ruins that are near larger sites. And it seems like they're separated because you have so much jungle and so much trees. But back in the day when they were in use, not only were there not as many trees, but many of these other structures that are being found were actually part of the bigger city. So these cities are much larger than you can even imagine. And I'm going to show you one specific example of that at least today when we go to Kaaba, that we just have this small little area that's excavated, but there's all these pyramids within the jungle around it, and you can't even go to it. And some of them are on private land. So somebody else owns the land, so you can't go to it, or they do private tours only where you need to pay maybe a higher amount just to go see it. There's also previously undiscovered sites being found almost every year. If there's one place on the earth that I would say there's probably a couple of places that come to mind, but definitely the down here, almost every single year there's new discoveries in this area. Like in 2020 alone, there was like two new discoveries. In 2019, there was one new discovery, and now with the invention of lidar, so many discoveries have been made. We just don't have the time, the resources, and really, I guess the manpower to go and create the go and trek to them and then create sites out of them that people can start visiting. But eventually, we're going to get there. So the question is, what are we going to find inside these sites? There's so much more. If at least 50% of these sites are unexcavated, unentered, what are we going to find inside of them? And there's also, even in the excavated areas, there's thousands and thousands on unexplored temples and homes. And here is an article that you might remember and heard of, was when a Canadian kid had actually discovered a lost Mayan city. And this was in 2017. And he was using, triangulating using Google Earth and also LiDAR imagery that he had acquired. And he discovered that there were structures underneath the jungle. Now, since then, some of the structures he found, they realized were not structures, but he still did find other structures and really helped enter a new age of many more discoveries. Since when he had done this, we've had a lot more people that have been researching that aren't part of mainstream science, but really trying to figure out if they can find out if there are any more temples, pyramids, and dwellings of the Maya in the jungle down there. The lost world of the Maya is finally emerging from the jungle, and this article here is from February 6, 2019. An archaeologist, his name is Thomas Garrison, had spotted the buried remnants of a Maya road, a ribbon of limestone that once cut through the landscape. The road is just one piece of a vast network leading to terraced fields, reservoirs, defense fortifications, and more, all sprawling invisibly throughout the forest. You can see right down here, it's all the way down to the south of the border in Guatemala in Tikal, just right over the border. And you can see this zoomed in image right here where you can see the border of Mexico and Guatemala. And these are the structures around Tikal, right next to Tikal. So this goes back to the point. Tikal is one of the greatest and one of the largest, and was one of the largest actual cities in ancient Maya days. And now all these other structures are being found around it that probably connected Tikal, making it much larger than we originally thought. The questions that we still have, though, right, are how complex was their society? How did city states grow and fall and grow again? Right? They were around for 3,000 plus years, right? And if you go till now and we go back to 2600 BC, that's actually 4,600 years of conventionally accepted. I say conventionally because the conventional timeline is off so often that I got to say that it's at least really 4,600 years these Maya have been around. And how did the civilization untouched by the Iron Age rise from the jungle, only to fall apart? That's the question that conventional archaeologists have. LIDAR. So, what is LIDAR? LIDAR is an abbreviation for light detection and ranging. It bathes the jungle canopy in a stream of laser beams delivered from planes flying above. As the light bounces back, it creates a precise map of surface contours beneath the forest canopy. So right now, since LiDAR has been out, which has only been a few years, there's been 60,000 structures found in Guatemala alone. 60,000 structures. These discoveries are suggesting that Central America supported a civilization that was at its peak 1,500 years ago, more advanced than ancient Greek and Chinese cultures. That's saying quite a lot there. And here is a beautiful LiDAR image that you can see how it kind of looks when they're finding these structures. And this is an unexcavated area deep into the jungle. I think this is in Guatemala. And you can see here, look at all this and the road that's connecting it to multiple areas. So soon enough, a few people have gone to these some of these sites, but there's a lot of jungle and it's not really safe to go to. And definitely the tourism of Mexico aren't going to let regular tourists go there because they could get hurt or injured and they don't want to be liable for things like that. So eventually it will be a site that we can visit. But therein lies the question once again, what is in these structures, right? What more can we discover about these people in their ancient past? So in 2019, the archaeologists have unearthed a large ancient palace. This is another one. Every single discovery I just showed you, all within the last 2 to 3 years, and they're all different ones. So archaeologists have unearthed a large ancient palace in Mexico, likely used by Mayan elite more than 1,000 years ago. The palace was found in Coluba, a Maya city near today's Cancun. So if you ever go to Cancun, you can go see it, but it's not fully excavated yet, in eastern Mexico. And the anthropology experts working for Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology. Experts from the institute say the palace, which was 6 meters high and 55 meters long, over half the length of a football pitch, which was probably inhabited for two long periods between 600 to 1050 AD. So that's 450 years of its existence, and they're now finding it. And the really the kind of what's humorous to me is this wasn't really deep in the jungle. It wasn't that far away from a lot of structures, societies, and cities and buildings and people. So they've now discovered it's connected to other sites and they're excavating it. So um, I've been kind of monitoring the situation there and seeing if we can go visit it. And as far as I can tell, we can actually go drive up to it. However, they haven't made it into a site yet that you can pay to enter, but they're excavating it. So you can probably go and see that. And when we go to the Yucatan, which is going to be in November of this year, we will be taking people will be driving past this area. So we're going to try to figure out if we can go there and how we can get to see it. So what's really amazing is that now, especially our first tour down to the Yucatan with other people, we're going to be able to see structures that have just been discovered in the last few years. And here is just the wall of the area. This is the actual area that they have just discovered. So they're deep in excavation right now. So these are the areas that we're going to be exploring today. We're going to go to Altenha, which is in Belize, Merida, which is the city that out of the 3 or 4 times we've been there, most of the time that we flew into. One time we flew into Cancun. Uxmal, it's my second home. Haba, which isn't too far from Uxmal and connected to Uxmal. And Campeche is not a part of this, but I'm going to mention Campeche because we went through there, and just south of Campeche, you start seeing, which is in Tabasco, you start seeing many archaeological sites there, including Palenque, and then Tulum as well, which is near Playa del Carmen. There are ancient sites there as well. We're also going to talk about the ancient use of cenotes. How were they created and what were they used for? Why were we told the Maya were vanished? Maya architecture and the usages for certain structures. The ancient cacao trade and its importance. And the Maya in 2012 spiritual awareness connection. And then also, lastly, Maya temescales and sweat lodges. What are they? Now, our journey begins in Merida. Merida is the location that we like to fly in, just because Cancun is very touristy. Um, Merida seems, for me personally, is much more down to earth. Beautiful area, amazing restaurants, great people, And it's a really central hub to start the exploration of archaeological sites. Whereas when you go to Cancun, if you go south to Playa del Carmen and to Tulum, there are some smaller sites there, but then you really have to go in a little bit to Coba in order to get to the really epic sites. But Uxmal, which is the place that I love the most, is closer to Merida, so it only makes sense. So when we go on this tour, and the tours that are going to be yearly, every year we go, we're going to take a different speaker with us. The first year it's going to be my wife and myself and Jaime, and then we're probably bringing another speaker such as Billy Carson and other ones every single year down in Yucatan in November. So just to give you an idea of how this area looks, I'm going to go ahead and show you a video of just us walking in town. This isn't neither here or there. It's just kind of like a feel. I want you to get the feel of the areas and the main town that we fly into. And this video I just showed you really just to kind of give you a feel of the streets of Merida. Now, Alton Ha is the first location that we're going to explore, and Alton Ha is located in Belize City. 31 miles north of Belize City, maybe around an hour and a half south of the Mexican Belize border. And we went there for my wife's birthday a few years ago, and we got to see that out. So after we do Alton Ha, we're going to go back to Merida and then start the tour down to Uxmal, into Palenque, and then all the way to Quintana Roo. Here is a map of Alton Ha, and there was a ceremonial center in Alton Ha with two main plazas. There were 13 structures. There we go with lucky number 13, which we find quite often in Maya architecture, including the Temple of the Sun or the Temple of the Masonry altars. You can see right there the Temple of the Sun, Temple of Masonry altars is right there. I would like to also mention that many of these names were given to them by the Spaniards from individuals that didn't really know what they were used for. So we have temple this, temple that, but there's a chance that they were actually used for different things. Altenha was recognized firstly in 1957 by A.H. Anderson, who is the archaeological commissioner. He had followed up on a report made by the Public Works Department of some questionable mounds in the area where they were planning to push some roads. He found them to be archaeological mounds. So this site was only rediscovered in 1957. The earliest settlement in this area was around 200 BC, and then in around 100 AD, we see the first structure. So in 200 BC is when this area was settled, and not until 100 years later, 300 years later, do we see the first structure. And then in 900 AD, which was 800 years after the first structure, we see a rapid decline. And here is a map of that we found in the museum at Alton Ha, which also speaks about the sea trade routes. We look and then follow my cursor here, and we look at the top left. We have blue is the sea trade routes. We have the reddish land trade routes. We have this brown goldish kind of region borders. So you can see this is the trade routes and all the things that were traded from these routes and really stemmed from this area. And right at the bottom, right here, we have the area of Alton Ha. And the very like awesome thing is that many of these trade routes right here, let's take this one for example. You see this red route that I'm putting my cursor on? Many of these routes that were used by the Maya still exist, but now just become regular roads. So when you're traveling down some of these places to from one area to another area, you're going down the exact same route. They just eventually change them into roads. And this jade head right here was found in that area. And here's some tools that were also found in Alton Ha. This is one of the pyramids here that you're going to see a video in a moment of us going up. And this is at the top of that pyramid. And you can see all the structures that have been excavated. And again, this is one of the many areas where it's actually probably larger than what we can see and what we can visit right now. Because in the jungle, there's more structures. And, they found mounds. all of these beautiful structures, like are straight up pyramids, look like mounds because they were overgrown hills at that point. So in this map here, you can see the trade routes of the Mayans, sea trade routes, the land trade routes, and the borders. You have the blue right here, which is the sea trade routes. You can see right now we're in Belize. And from down here, where it's Guatemala, we'll take the trade routes all the way up to where we were before in Tulum and the ruins over there. And then we have the red routes, that some roads that actually connect these areas right now, basically the same routes that they used back in the day. And then we have the borders right here for the different regions of the Mayan Empire. Starting over here, I guess this is Tabasco and Campeche, going all the way down to below Belize into the bottom of Guatemala, right, cutting into some of the Honduras. You can see the last border right there. Welcome everyone to Altunja. Here's the entrance in the beginning. Climbing up some pyramids, steps that are over thousands of years old. It's the only pyramid here that we're allowed to climb up. And when we're at the top, we'll take a look at the whole grounds. Altunja was not the name given by the Mayans. When they found this in 1965, they did not know what it was called and still do not know. So now they call it Altunja, but it seems like it was a place of ceremony and rituals. There's an entrance right here into the pyramid. I'm not allowed to walk up it. This is some sort of quarter, some sort of room. And obviously, this isn't how it was found. They've filled in certain parts and reconstructed it. Alright, here you can look at the Mayan stonework. And this is only partially excavated. You can see the rock placement here. This is basically part of the flat surface that they just excavated a bit, so there is a lot more to this. But this is all they got out. And then the rest of this, out of the few hundred years since the 1700s, the British invasion, this was only found in 1965. So it was, to make a correction there, it was discovered in 1957 and then it was excavated in the 60s. The origin of the word Yucatan. Some of you may have heard this story, but it's a really cool story to know. What really is, the origin of the word Yucatan? There are two possible stories here. One is that when Francisco Hernandez de Cordova arrived on the coast of the Yucatan, he asked the natives where he was. They replied in their native tongue that they didn't understand what he was saying. Because Cordova thought their answer sounded like the word Yucatan, he gave that name to the region. I like this story the best. I feel like there's more evidence to suggest that this is the true purpose of it, of the word. And then the second one is the name is derived from the Nahuatl word Yocatalan, meaning place of richness. These two words are markedly similar, but since the other language is Aztec language, and the first Spanish to land in the Yucatan only encountered the Maya, they didn't encounter the Aztec yet. The first Spanish encountered the Maya first. They may use the Aztec word, but we don't have any evidence for that. So many people believe, not until I started doing research did I even know there was two stories here. I only had heard the one story that when they said Yucatan, it means, I don't know what you're saying, Yucatan. And that became the name of the peninsula. The theory on how the Yucatan was formed, and if you look at the Yucatan, it's a very interesting area, right? It's the way it is, the peninsula, how it's protruding out there. So one of the theories that is a standing theory that is accepted by conventional science as well, and probably is the case, is that Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula was formed 65 million years ago when an asteroid crashed into the Earth's surface just north of the city of Merida. So, and you can see the crater here. This circle spans the whole crater, goes down past Merida, just north of Uxmal. And here is another image of the crater, and here's thermal imagery of the area and heat signatures that show that this has actually occurred. 65 million years ago is when it's estimated to have happened. Now, here's another image of the surrounding areas of the crater. And you can see all these little dots here. And all these dots actually represent something called a cenote. And we're going to go into what that is. And the image right here to the left is an old image of a cenote. I'm going to show you some newer ones. And what had occurred is, firstly, it looks like that there have been multiple asteroids that have hit the Yucatan Peninsula. Um, my theory is that I'm not going to go deep into because I don't want to provide any theories without more research. But my theory is that an asteroid had hit that area at least twice, maybe three times in the last 65 million years, that there is some sort of magnetic pull or energy there where asteroids love that area. Seems like it in the last 65 million years, it's had multiple impacts. So the 65 million year ago asteroid hit that area, but also all the fragments and meteors that were not a part of the asteroid came and rained down over the entire peninsula. And you see all these little dots here are actually little mini craters that were created from the asteroid impact. So what is a cenote? A cenote is a sinkhole resulting from the collapse of limestone bedrock that exposes groundwater or underground lakes in the Yucatan Peninsula. So what happened here? Asteroid hits this area right here, fragments and meteorites all over the peninsula, creating all these little sinkholes. The water from underneath, the fresh water from underneath the Yucatan and the underground lakes came to the surface, creating what we now know as cenotes. So they were commonly used for water supplies by the ancient Maya. Cenotes were very important to their culture. And cacao trees were grown around cenotes since the ecosystem in a cenote seemed to provide the perfect condition for them to flourish. So cacao trees flourished the best in the ecosystem in cenotes that just created this whole different dynamic that allowed them to flourish there. And the result, they're also the result, as I said just now, of multiple meteorites bombarding the peninsula around 65 million years ago. And this might sound familiar to you because what else happened 65 million years ago? The conventionally accepted theory that an asteroid hit Earth and the dinosaurs were killed. So this asteroid that we're referring to is actually what is thought to be the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs that actually created the cenotes. So next time you're swimming in a cenote, just know that the fragments of the meteorite that actually created those cenotes is the same exact asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. Also, it's a portal to the underworld. The Maya believed that these cenotes were entrances into the underworld, into the afterlife. So the cacao trees actually being in there combined with the cenotes was really sacred for them. Here are some images of cenotes. On our tour, we're going to go to at least two different epic cenotes, maybe another, maybe a third, but this is how they look. Healing waters. I mean, we went the first year we went there, we went to the jungle near in not too far from Tulum, inside like inland from Tulum. We went to the jungle. We went on a zip lining, canoeing, and cenote excursion right in the jungle. And that ends with a meal by a Maya family, which we'll also be doing similar things when we take people on tour. And so my wife Sol, when we were on zip lining, she injured herself just a little bit, like with the zip line, and scratched some of her skin. And then we went into a cenote soon afterwards, and we were swimming in it, dipping in it, and the healing was like so incredibly fast compared to any other situation that wouldn't have had the cenote there. So there was definitely something healing about it. So not only were they considered these portals to the underworld, but the waters there have these healing properties, and maybe it's the minerals from the asteroid. That could be part of why they're actually scientifically can prove that there is actually healing that can happen through this. Here's another one. Look how amazing this looks. So just imagine a meteorite fragment, boom, right through there, piercing a hole, creating a sinkhole. And then look at this right here. It's like something out of Lord of the Rings. The cacao tree. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the cacao tree, and even if you haven't heard of it, I'm telling you right now that that is where chocolate comes from. So the cacao tree is something you heard of, maybe not directly about what cacao is, but the cacao tree is actually found throughout North Amazon and into Central America. So Colombia area, just the north of South America, going all the way up to Costa Rica, Panama. And then we found it in the find it in the Caribbean as well, but it really thrived in Central America, in South Mexico, where the Maya were. It actually takes 3 to 5 years for the tree to even begin to produce fruit. So there was a big investment when they were creating these cacao trees. They would spend 3 to 5 years really cultivating it in order for them to even begin to produce fruit. Nowadays, cacao trees aren't really grown intentionally in cenotes. So the question lies, maybe it took less time when they were actually growing it in the cenotes. So, and cenotes are the perfect ecosystem for the cacao to grow. The sacredness of cacao and the cenote together, right? If you understand anything about cacao ceremonies and how sacred it is, and then you also understand cenotes and how there are portals to the underworlds that came from meteorite fragments. Just imagine the sacredness there. So the combination of both of them in one place really made these cenotes something spectacular. Cacao was also used as a currency and was at one point in time more valuable than gold. And trade between citizens usually involved cacao. There's evidence of its use back to 2000 BC, in which a Mayan king was tomb was uncovered that had cacao beans in it. So beyond just people, citizens in the Maya Empire exchanging goods with each other and utilizing cacao, there was also royal tributes, just like now, just like in Europe, just like in the Middle Ages, people had to pay their taxes. So the Mayan kings, they would require taxes, and cacao beans were the one of the best ways of settling that debt. So there was around 11 million beans per year that were accepted, given to the elite. 11 million beans per year given to the elite as payment. So they had an endless supply of the prequel, let's say, to chocolate. And here is some images of cacao. So let's give reverence to cacao in this moment. See an unripe version here at the top. And the background is one big one. And then at the bottom, we have a cacao pod opened up. And then here is one that is fully ripe. This is where your chocolate comes from. So this takes us into the next mini documentary here. And this one's probably one of the longer ones of the day. And this one is called The History of Cacao. So in Uxmal, the center really of a lot of what we're going to be doing in Uxmal and Santa Elena, the work we're going to be doing with the local Mayans and that we are doing and what we're building out there. The history of cacao, this is actually filmed in the Cacao Museum. That's probably like a 3-minute walk out of the hotel, maybe 5 minutes tops. So it's very close. It's right in the heart of Uxmal. And this is going to be an exploration of the ancient use of cacao all the way up until Spain. And then we're going to pick it up from Spain and then move forward into the future. So here we go here. This is the history of cacao.
Just as we were walking by, I was asking Neil what does the word Maya mean, and he started talking about how there's an Indian god named Maya, and it's the god of illusion. So he has a belief that the word Maya actually means illusion, and the Mayans believed that this reality was an illusion. But as we were talking about that, we come across a tamarind tree, and it's very interesting. Sol and I used to think that this straight from Mexico, but it actually is originally from India.
As there are many things that Mexicans believe that are native to our land, but they're not, like the mango.
So obviously through the spice trade, like the mango and many other spices came and were dropped off here, and they were inherited by the local culture, and it became a part of their culture, and they've been using it ever since and taking it on as their own. So it's just interesting to note how everything comes from everywhere. So there's some sort of connection there that hasn't been explored, where even their spiritualism was really in connection, in alignment with Indian traditions. So the word cacao comes from the Olmec word cacao, but the word chocolate is actually a combination of the Mayan word choco, which means hot, and ha, which means water. The resulting word choco ha refers to the hot cocoa-based drink that was drunk by the Mayans. And then here is the glyph for cacao. So the origin of the cacao bean is not known. It's thought to have come from an area between Venezuela and Brazil, but it really isn't known because transporting cacao is really difficult, and the cacao bean, the cacao seed, would need to be planted within 10 days of being taken. So if it was, say, from here, somewhere between Venezuela and Brazil, and then when 10 days needed to be taken up to Central America in order to be planted, it would be very difficult to do that. So the theory is that it went with native routes, trade routes, over thousands of years, and it slowly kind of made its way up north. So cocoa beans was so rare in the 15th to 16th century that it was used as currency alongside obsidian and alongside copper. There were 3 different forms of currency in cacao that was utilized in order to exchange. And you can see right here, a rabbit was worth, 1 to 10 cacao beans, and a slave at one point, a slave in good health, went for 100 cocoa beans. And this continued up until even past the 16th century, after the Spanish conquest of Central America, and it actually increased in value, whereas soon the cacao bean, being so rare, actually became very close to the same amount as 1 real, which was used in Spain. The oldest evidence of coca used as a drink was found in pre-Olmec pottery in the Veracruz region and in Moncaya, the pottery found in the Sokunso region of Chiapas coast, dating back to 2000 BC. And the drink was prepared by roasting, peeling, and grinding cocoa beans, and the resulting paste was then mixed with water and spices. The chocolate was beaten to produce a large amount of foam, which was especially valued by the nobles and offered to the gods. You can see right here kind of the process of how it was done. Roasted, ground, diluted, foam right there, poured, and then shaked. This is just some of what they used. Cacao in the Yucatan was and always has been really rare. It doesn't just grow everywhere. It has to be grown in a microclimate. So the cocoa tree was actually ideal to be grown near cenotes, which are basically when ancient meteorites hit this area, Yucatan area, some time ago, underground lakes would come up and fill up the cenotes and create these beautiful, pristine microclimates and basically sinkholes. And however, in the ones with too much water, it didn't work out. There were some cenotes that only had a little bit of water in them that would create the perfect microclimate and the perfect shade for cacao trees. And that's where the Mayans would grow the cacao. And here is the process of selecting the cocoa beans. The impurities would have to be removed, like stones, moldy, broken beans, or pods with no beans. This can be done manually or sometimes with this type of sieve. It's slowly dried under the hot rays of the sun. It's very common to see a small producer drying his cocoa in the patio of his home with the most recommended recommendation, like the cocoa would be on wood racks, just like this right here. And then there's the process of fermentation. It takes about 36 hours for these cocoa beans to be fully fermented. You can see right here, fermented beans. Those are the washed ones before they're fermented. The cacao tree has really deep roots, and the oldest technique would be they would basically put the cacao seed in a bag and put it directly in the ground. However, recently with grafting and the new advancements in how we grow plants, there's been grafting. And here we see the routes on the years on when cacao went to different areas of the world. And it's really amazing. If you start with number 1, we go Mexico to the Philippines in 1670, then the Philippines to the island of Abon, 1750 to 1778, Philippines to Indonesia, and then Indonesia and the Philippines and Sri Lanka. And then we got Sri Lanka to Madagascar, and then we got Trinidad in 1880, and you can see it keeps going on. So this is basically how it was taken from Central America and taken all over the world. The cacao bean obviously connects to many different traditions, and within the spiritual community, there's cacao ceremonies all the time in which they're utilizing this sacred plant in ceremony to bring in spirits, upliftment, positivity, energy, combining it with yoga and different types of practices. Reason for this is cacao is not only the highest, or at least one of the highest antioxidants on the planet, but it's been used as a sacred medicine, as you saw in the ceremony earlier, for thousands of years. And cacao is just extremely good for you all around, and without the sugar and without the processing, it's really something pure. And it's interesting when you talk about chocolate, it's almost like a guilty pleasure, but the original chocolate was bitter tasting, wasn't even sugary, and was literally there in order to heal and align you. Like, I just had a cup of cacao, I had heartburn, and now I don't have heartburn anymore. Like, it literally does heal you. So it's interesting to note that it's kind of been become something that it really wasn't originally intended for.
Cheers. Salud. Salud a la vida. Cheers. Y el cacao.
Cheers.
So I hope you all enjoyed the history of cacao. There's a few things we missed about, obviously, the Spanish conquistadors and them coming down here and them taking cacao all over the world, and what they did and how they exploited the cacao bean and the Mayan people, and how cacao and chocolate just became worldwide and prevalent. And they added sugar to it, and whereas naturally it was with cinnamon and chili, so a lot of different variations, but this is where, cacao and cocoa and chocolate began.
Speaking about cacao going international, and it was first introduced to the Spanish at the meeting with Montezuma in the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan in 1519. And I want to take a little moment here to speak about Montezuma. Some of you have probably heard stories about how he was, how he betrayed his people, how they had a prophecy that there was going to be a white god, a god that was, had white complexion coming, and that when it comes, it would be like the god and the savior, basically. So because of this, Montezuma maybe gave his power up. And it looks like that, conventionally speaking, that he betrayed his people. But just in the last couple of years, new studies and new findings have come about to say that maybe that isn't the case at all. And the reason why I want to mention that is because time in our past is so malleable and can shift in any single moment. We're always understanding a bigger picture of what it means to be human on this planet and our ancient past. And things like, a whole story around Montezuma and how he betrayed his people really was embedded into the culture for so long. So what this makes me realize is over and over again, history is created by the victors, is rewritten by the victors. So that's why at Portal to Ascension, I'm on this huge search for, root of all religion, ancient history, true world history. What is our true world history? And the important part of our true world history is that, we can prove that our history has been manipulated so much. Whoever wins the last war, they rewrite everything as if they were the ones that should have been the ones that triumphed all along. So because of this, it's important for us to do our own research and really try to figure out what history looks like. So the emperor Montezuma, he consumed massive amounts of cacao. They witnessed how it was created. So Cortez saw that how the cacao was created. He saw how it was whipped. So this story right here is very interesting because right now I'm telling you the story that was the beginning of the reason why we have chocolate at the 99-cent store, to put it like as blatantly as possible, right? So they witnessed how it was created and whipped, and cacao was introduced to the Spanish court a few decades later. So 1519, so we have 1544, that's around 25 years later, to Prince Philip. That's when it was introduced to him. Within a century of that, chocolate had spread to France, to England, and elsewhere in Western Europe. And the demand for this beverage led to the French establishing a cacao plantation in the Caribbean, while the Spanish made their cacao plantation in Venezuela and the Philippine colonies. And as you saw in the video there, how when it left Mexico from the Spanish, one of the first places it went to, if not the first place, was the Philippines. And that was really where they started cultivating the cacao and sending it all over Europe. The traditional pre-Hispanic beverage made with cacao still does exist and consumed in parts of Mesoamerica. And one of the beverages would be the Huacan beverage known as tejate, which is one of the original recipes of how cacao was used by the Maya. That we just visited, the Cacao Museum, is in Uxmal. So right here, here's Uxmal right there. And the cacao place is literally just like in the heart of Uxmal, not too far from the main hotel there, Uxmal Maya Resort. And so since we're in this area, we're going to now go from Merida. We took a detour to a few different places. Now we're going to go to Uxmal and take a look at some architecture and some ancient sites there. And when we take individuals down every single year, all the places that I'm going to be showing today, we're going to visit, plus more. And hopefully every year we can start going to different places that no one's really gone to or just started going to. So we're going to start with Uxmal. And here is a map of the excavated area of Uxmal. It's extremely large. It's one of the most well-preserved cities of the Maya Empire. And you can see we have the Pyramid of the Woman here. We have the Great Pyramid, the Governor's Palace, and the Pyramid of the Magician. If you can look right up here, the Pyramid of the Magician, that's right where the entrance is, and that is the main structure there. And I'm going to show you that in a couple of slides from now. So Uxmal, I've said it multiple times, it's our second home. Well, for me, it's definitely my second home. And for my wife, it might be a third home because she loves Morocco. And just love the area, love the people, met Jaime there. And it's also an important Maya city which flourished between the 6th and the 10th century. And it is one of the best preserved Maya sites. It's huge, bigger than the excavated area. It's also listed by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. It seems like it was settled in the 6th century or earlier. It was between 850 and 925 that Uxmal fully established itself as the capital of a collection of lesser cities in the Eastern Puk region. In a few slides from now, I'm going to talk about Puk architecture and the Puk region and what that is exactly. Along with other northern sites like Chichen Itza, Uxmal survived the collapse which affected most other Maya cities in 900 CE, when there was a collapse there, mostly in northern parts of the empire. Later in the 13th and 14th centuries, Uxmal was part of an alliance of Yucatan city-states led by the Mayapan. So it was around for a long, long time as well, but it was really started to be created. There were small city-states, small tribes there, but around 850 to 925 was really when it started being built up, which is synchronistically, really, the same time around 900 CE when Palenque and other areas north of Uxmal started their decline and their mass migration out of those areas. These types of cities became the larger ones in the area. And another city that's connected to Uxmal, which is called Kaaba. That one was actually the first settlement in the area before Uxmal was created, almost like their stepping stone to creating Uxmal. This image here is taken from Uxmal Maya Resort, the hotel that we've gone to multiple times. From now on, we're not going to be going to this hotel anymore. We're going to be going to an eco-friendly kind of like hotel slash, I don't even know how to explain it, like elemental buildings. Like it looks like you're in an elemental fairy kingdom inside the middle of the jungle in Uxmal and Santa Elena area. That's where we're going to start going and taking people to, just because of the eco-friendly nature and because they have their own temescal that's pretty amazing. They can cater food to us, especially if you have specific diets. So this one right here is us on the balcony on the third floor of the hotel. And you can see the pyramid of, it was the pyramid of the magician is right there. We can see it from our balcony. And right below us is the pool and the whole area for the outside of the hotel. And just underneath these trees here, the first set of trees that you see in front is where the temescal is that Jaime runs. I think he stopped working there now. But Jaime, your other tour guide for this experience today, and your tour guide for when you ever go down there with us, the temescal is over there. And just to give you a story of this temescal, is that, let me see, do I want to give you this story now or wait until I get to the temescal area? I'll give you a little bit and we'll talk about it more. So the temescal there is part of the hotel, and Jaime is a descendant from local Mayan in the area. His grandfather was the local shaman in the area before the hotel even came about, and he would do temescales, which is sweat lodges. From now on, I'm going to say the word temescal or temescales, but in case you don't know what that is, I'll just let you know right now. A temescales is a sweat lodge, right? And that's what we call them in English up here in Northern America. So his grandfather used to run the actual sweat lodge, the temescal, that was actually a part of, not a part of the hotel before. And then when the hotel came, they built it on, an area where there were actually archaeological ruins around them. Even on the property of the resort, there's actually some structures out in the front that they've utilized for, basically when you enter, you can see these ruins when you enter the resort. And when the hotel came about, they hired him and his cousin to run the temescals because they were the local shamans anyway. So what has happened is that a lot of these hotels, all the regular temescales that were available for, the Maya people and using the ancient ways, began being shut down, and then the hotels took them all over, and then they hired the local Maya who were the descendants of these shaman, and then put them in the hotels to work for them at pennies. So this is us looking over there. And also through this jungle, there's a road that takes you there. It's around 5 minutes to drive to the site. You can see all the sites actually right here. Like even on all the way to the right, you can see another structure here. So it's like 5 minutes to drive, or it's a 20-minute walk through the jungle, which is a very beautiful walk as well. And we took that walk before. I'm not going to show the video of us walking through it. That will probably be on our YouTube sometime in the future. I'll put that video out there. So at Uxmal, we have something called the Pyramid of the Magician, which is a structure that had two separate building phases, beginning in the 6th century CE and ending in the 10th century. The pyramid is distinctive for its rounded corners, which makes it almost oval in shape when seen from above, making the pyramid unique in Maya architecture. A steep staircase embellished with carved masks climbs the west side and reaches a doorway carved to represent the mouth of a tall serpent monster. And here it is. So let's read that part again so we can compare to the actual image. The pyramid is distinctive for its rounded corners, which makes it almost oval in shape when seen from above, making the pyramid unique in Maya architecture. A steep staircase embellished with carved masks climbs the west side and reaches a doorway carved to represent the mouth of a terrible serpent monster. So look at this. And let me just say that also this information about the terrible serpent monster is implying the look of it. I have a feeling that the Maya didn't think it was terrible at all, and it was a representation of the spirituality and maybe even Kundalini awakening, because we see the serpent throughout all ancient scriptures, really from a lot of them, that represents divine wisdom. So we have the steep staircase here, and something that is really unique to the Pook style architecture, which I'll explain exactly what that is soon, are these masked structures on the top of these pyramids and temples. And this is another area within Uxmal. And now here is on the other side of the site here. We're on top of this, and you'll see a video in a moment of us climbing it and going in some of these rooms. But there is the pyramid once again that we just took a look at. This temple that I'm in right now was a temple that was utilized for when they would have ceremonies before they would have sports games. That is what has been, we have been told it was used for. Going inside one of these temples. You see the Pook style architecture there with the triangle ceilings, pyramid style ceilings. When we were there last time, we came across, this is the third time that we went to Uxmal. We came across a group of people from Japan that was a spiritual group that looks like they traveled the world maybe different times to go to ancient sites and connect to the spirituality of that area. So we saw this when we were walking there, and we just decided to take a video of it. They were cool with it, and we had a brief connection afterwards, and we exchanged a few smiles and a lot of energy without having to speak. And then we just kind of stood there around them too. But it was beautiful to watch because they were just like right in front of the pyramid of the magician, just absorbing the energy of the antiquity of this area. Let's do it now. And now this one is exploring the dwellings. So right here on the left-hand side, this is actually the dwellings where people would live. And unlike many of the pyramids and temple structures that are still pretty much intact and have been repaired, these really haven't. First of all, it seems like they don't invest the time and energy really to rebuild houses like this. Plus, these were all just smaller structures that were for people to live in. So we're going to take a little walking tour around this right now. This temple here. I remember this part. These are where the habitations were, houses. People used to live. Let's go inside this temple. I'll do the side. Oh, nothing in here. The Maya had a really keen knowledge of acoustics and just how to make structures. Some of the things that you really notice when you're there about the architecture are amazing. And one thing that you find there that you find on a lot of ancient sites is their understanding of acoustics, frequency, and sound. And here's just a little example. You can hear it just briefly here, but it's so much more profound, of course, when you're there because you can really hear the echoing and the sound. But here, my wife is demonstrating that when she's clapping in the center there, that it's almost like those doors and those entrances to those temples echo back that sound, and you hear that vibration back there. So just their way that they even created these structures really had in mind acoustics and frequency.
So the Mayans had a really great understanding of acoustics in a lot of different areas. When you clap and things like that, there's some echo back, feedback. Plus, when there's like only a few people here, and then if she's up there and I'm over here and she like whispers, I can hear her. Priestess Temple.
Notice again the masks statues on the building, which is the Puke style architecture that you see that quite often in that region.
Oh, the Mayan priestess is here waiting for me.
Where's my phone?
You can really feel and smell the moisture, not only from the rain, but the humidity. All right, so this one right here is the documentary we created on Uxmal, and this was actually footage taken from the first time we're there. Got quite a lot more footage after these first two times. This one's just kind of an overview, a general view of the area when we first went to see it. So here we are, everyone, at the Uxmal Pyramids, and we've been to a few different destinations, and now we're at Uxmal, and this is actually one of the main archaeological sites of the Mayan culture. At its heyday, this site had around 15,000 people living here, and the date on this hasn't actually been discovered. They're not too sure when it was, but we do know that it was still in use up until at least 1100 AD when the Toltec came in and they took over. We're gonna go up there now and check out the site. So Uxmal is a really, really large area. This was one of the main sites for Mayan culture and Mayan empire.
this is actually kind of like an aqueduct, and there was not too much rainfall. There was a lack of rivers, so they actually created these in order to collect rainwater, and it would go down the tube right there. They would collect it so that they can use it later, and that they can use it to drink and also for agriculture. You can see here the main pyramid in Uxmal, and as you can tell, a lot of this actually has been reconstructed. The concrete there, the filling. So just imagine how this looked like when they first found it and what it took to reconstruct this. So they had to put in some time and energy to get this up to be able to sustain and last longer. Here we are just below this temple right here, and right above the main ground where the main pyramid is. Here is the ball game right here. You can take a look. You can see the hoop. And that's where they would put the ball through. And there's the temple. There's a lot of speculation as to what some of these things were used for, but it seems that this right here could have been a ceremonial area where rituals and rites and different ceremonies were performed before they would have the ball game at the field. This is a huge structure with many different little rooms inside. This ground is huge, and you can see here's another temple right here. Let's go inside. Take a look at the structure and how they would build their roofs. Exploring some of the rooms. And I believe on the other side we'll see actually quarters where they lived. So it looks like this was the living quarters for quite a few different homes. There were other rooms here, and they're no longer in existence. Just this is what's left of them. Meditate and levitate. Waves of frequencies resonate higher. I'm connected with the provider. Source of cosmic energy. We're going to be one single entity. Expansion remedied. Oneness must breathe. Exhale and let free. Consciousness to be. Experiences you and me. Souls of interdimensional beings feel, hear, and see. This third-dimensional planetary existence, all time can be found in one instance. In this realm of linearity, atoms in anarchy, quantum polarity, the epitome of creation, facing our egos, acquiring patience, waiting to let go of our nations and join the federation of souls that will take us to the fifth world. What is the truth, guys? Did they vanish? Everything is speculation. Everything has been written and rewritten by the victors. All the information has been given to us about who the Mayan were, what they did, what the purpose of these temples were, by the individuals that conquered them, that thought they were savages. That's where the stories come from. The stories about their life come from those who took them over and didn't want anybody to realize their greatness. Does this look like it was created by a bunch of savages? Or does it look like that there was some sort of advanced technology at work here, and that these temples were built for a reason?
Uxmal is going to be a central hub of outdoors down in the Yucatan. We're starting with one a year, but I'm pretty sure it's going to take off. It's, we only have like 4 or 5 spaces left, and we're leaving it at like 9 people tops maximum, just so we can really, travel together and all that. But Santa Elena is where that eco-friendly hotel. So around our 10-day tour, around 4 days is around this area. Santa Elena as the hub, Uxmal as the main site that we're going to see, Caba, which is right after Santa Elena, the second main site, and then the 3rd day is going to be not only the Cacao Museum, but other lesser known sites that hardly anybody goes to. You do need, it's best to have a car in this area, which we'll have, but if you get dropped there by a bus, the only place you can really go to on a bus is the main Uxmal area. You can't really drive 30 minutes to the other sites. So the reason why a lot of there isn't as much traffic at some of these sites that you can see is because some of these sites are actually you need a car to go to. So first of all, it's at near Uxmal. Most people go there by bus or get dropped off there. Not everybody has a car, and it's not really right next to the main hotels 30 minutes away. So you have lesser and lesser people going to these places around the area. Also, why there is less people there, for example, in Uxmal, which is the main site there, is I choose the best time of year to go. And the best time of year to go is when we're going to be going for this tour, which is just before Thanksgiving into Thanksgiving week, because it seems like there's the least amount of people there. At some places, we had like almost the entire place to ourselves, like hotel, it seemed like there's very few people there. So that's a really good time to leave because Thanksgiving, most people don't leave to go to Mexico. This stay in the States in order to basically spend some time with their family. So we had a really great opportunity to go there every single year at times where there's less people. Plus, I didn't go on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Whenever we go down there, we stay there for weeks. So on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're doing other things. During the week is when we chose to go to these sites because there would be less people there, less traffic, and we'd be able to get great footage. So now we're moving on to Santa Elena. And Santa Elena is the city that is right next to Uxmal, 20 minutes, maybe 30, not even 20-minute drive from Uxmal. It's where Jaime and his family live. This is his sister there and his niece. We went to the center of town together and got some ice cream one day. And we just hung out there. Now in Santa Elena, they're now discovering ancient sites there as well. And here is the location on Santa Elena. Let's take a look at here on Google Maps. And you can see Uxmal right there, right in just in the middle, just a little bit below where my cursor is, and Santa Elena right there, 20-minute drive. And then Tikul is the other major city. Tikul is a larger city than Santa Elena, and Muna is the even larger city. So we have Uxmal, Muna, Tikul, and Santa Elena. The majority of the people living in these cities are all, if not almost all of them, are really Maya descendants. Some of them, that let me just say that again. Yeah, most of those people in those areas are Maya descendants, and the people that work in these hotels that go to these areas come from these villages and these towns. And all of these cities used to have Maya names. They've been changed over the time because these cities actually existed hundreds, if not thousands plus years ago, but they had completely different names at those times. So in Santa Elena, we have Jaime and where his family lives. This is the last time we went there. We went and hung out with his family, and Jaime had to go to work to Uxmal Maya Resort so that he can run the temescal over there and do his work on the grounds. But we ended up hanging out and staying with his family. So I quickly said to him, "Smile," and then I had him like turn around, and his mom right there is laughing as well, and he was saying bye and going off to do the temescal. So in this area, ancient Maya artifacts have been discovered. They have not sectioned them off yet and making them into a site to visit. I don't think they will because there's small artifacts around the city. It's like ruins that you can't really capitalize off. Like, because if you drive down in the Yucatan, you'll see random ruins here and there, but some of them are just very small, very decaying structures. And Santa Elena is also important because this is where the portal to Ascension Temescal is, everybody. The portal to Ascension Sweat Lodge that Jaime has built from with his own hands is located in Santa Elena. And here it is. So here's the story of what happened with this Temescal. This is like the beginning phases of creation. So let me give you the story of Jaime as much as I can remember. So Jaime, he is a descendant of Maya, right? In that area. As far as he knows, like he's been in that area, Santa Elena, even before it was Santa Elena. His family were all descendants from that area. His grandfather was a shaman, a local shaman that would run the temescales for the locals there. And then what had happened is that all of a sudden, all these resorts came in, right? All these hotels came all over the Yucatan Peninsula. And I challenge you, right? I challenge any of you to go to the Yucatan and try to find an authentic Maya temescal that is not part of a corporation, not part of a hotel, not part of some money-making scheme, or not watered down, right? And I mean, we've tried it ourselves and we couldn't find it. And we've asked many people and questions, and they say this doesn't exist. So what it looks like has happened is all these huge corporations and hotels and resorts have come into the area. They bought out all the land. They hire the local shaman that was already doing these before they got there so that they can keep it authentic, right? And then they pay the shaman literally like $1 a day or less than that sometimes, or a little more. It's like within that range, but you pay $30 per person to go into Temescal. So the shamans are running these sweat lodges, and you got $30 a person, 5 people on average, maybe a little bit more in there. They're making a good $150 per Temescal, and they do multiple ones a day, but the shaman gets a couple of bucks for running it, just part of their salary. Since there wasn't any real authentic one there, and it was such a huge part of their existence and their history, we asked him, what could we do? Because he said he wanted to create his own, right? And he said that he had land that his grandfather had given him. And on this land, he wanted to create a temescal. So we went home, or actually, we hadn't even left yet. We thought about it in a hotel, and we came up like, okay, let's figure out how much this is. And if it's affordable, let's pay him to make what looks like the first authentic temescal in the whole of the Yucatan, because all of them are bought up by hotels. So we gave him the money for it. This is a few years ago. He started creating it there and then, and building it. And at this point, we now have a full portal to Ascension temescal right in the center of the Yucatan Peninsula, Santa Elena, that is utilizing original, authentic Maya traditions, isn't watered down experience, and isn't giving money to the corporations, but giving money directly to the Maya that, are the descendants of this ancient wisdom and ancient techniques of purification. So the local shamans are hired by resorts, as I just said, and no publicly known authentic temescal is left until now. And here's another image right there of the foundation, and then here's an image. Here's the completed product. You can see the firewood and the lava rocks right there, and this is what was created. And here is a better image of it all. Well, this is also when it was being created. So what we're doing is we're building right now as we speak, probably maybe not this minute, but there's a chance it could be this minute. But right now, during these weeks and months, we're actually having Jaime build showers in this area now. So we have the temescal. My wife and I went and experienced it as well last time we went there, because it was created. And we're building showers there. And soon we're going to build out that whole land, hopefully, and even maybe have a restaurant there. And it's going to be all run by Mayans from the local Santa Elena village, mainly his family, even the restaurant. And it's going to be able to provide them with a way to actually make an income, not having to rely on the hotels. And it's going to provide the community and the global community with a place that you can have an authentic Maya experience. Plus, it's happening right now. So it's not going to, it's doing that right now. And here is the finished version of it all. You see it right here. You see Jaime with his beautiful smile. This is right when we first got the chance to see it, and we were extremely excited. We're going to have at least 2 different temescal experiences here. The showers will probably be created by then too. Who knows what else we would build. But we're really creating a portal to Ascension hub down there. Pretty soon I'm going to be getting land in that area as well, hopefully, and building it out. And then doing a lot of work with the local Maya. Going inside the temescal. Mm-hmm.
This is it. You guys are gonna come join us. This is where we'll be 3 days of the temescals while we go to the archaeological sites as well.
It's beautiful.
Handmade by this guy right here. This right here is going to give him the opportunity to not have to work at a hotel and be a shaman at a hotel, but do the original, authentic traditions.
The journey that we really want to facilitate here is when we take people down there, and what I want to do through what I'm showing you right now is that we've seen so many presentations, well, I have personally, and going to conferences and being in this spiritual disclosure, true world history community has been a lot of esoteric information about the Maya. fifth dimension and the Maya, aliens and the Maya. Where did they vanish? The Maya, their vibration, their frequency information. All those deeply esoteric principles. But when you go down there and you have a hands-on experience of them, and you get to know a few of the local descendants, you heard their stories, and then you see their architecture, it's an entirely new perspective that a lot of people don't get to really experience when we're just listening to presentations on it. So the intention of this presentation is to introduce you to their area and introduce you to the structures and the reality of the people there and what they built. Moving on to Kaaba. Kaaba translates to royal snake in the hand. And Kaaba is very close to Uxmal, and it's one of those sites that I mentioned that you have Uxmal, you have Uxmal Maya Resort, you have a couple other big hotels around that area, you have Santa Elena, and then just a little bit beyond Santa Elena, maybe another 20 minutes, maybe 35 to 40 minutes tops away from the Uxmal archaeological site, you have Kaaba. And it's a site that is lesser known, but is definitely as important and as powerful and connected to Uxmal. Less people go to this site, and the reason why less people go to this site is really because you need to drive over there, and many people come down for a day or two to that area, and they spend a lot of time the Uxmal Mai Resort, the Chocolate Museum, the Cacao Museum, but they don't really make it all the way to Kaaba. So this is one site that we got an opportunity to go to, and that I'm going to show you. In Kaaba, royal snake in the hand, and it dates back to around 9th century. So here we go again. The fall of Palenque and certain areas. I do not really like to use the word fall. I don't really even like to use the word decline. Let's just say migration, right? The migration out of the northern parts of the Yucatan down into the southern, deeper into the peninsula, all the way into Tulum and Playa del Carmen. That really dated back to 9th century in the creation of Kaaba. It was the second largest architecture in the Puuc style. And there's an ancient road, a road that's connecting Kaaba to Uxmal, and it's called Sakbe. And the plural is Sakbiob, which means white way. This road is currently a regular road. That's the road that we drove in on. So we drove from Uxmal through to Santa Elena over here. It's the same road. It used to be a pathway called the White Way, and Sakbe actually translates to the Milky Way Road. So what the road represented was the Milky Way connecting different constellations together. And then that even ties into the fact that many of these archaeological sites are actually aligned to certain constellations in the stars. So it was interesting that their roads were called Milky Ways, as if they were pathways connecting these constellations. Now, you heard me mention Puuc style architecture a few times. So what is the Puuc style architecture? Well, it's a region in the Mexican state of the Yucatan and a Maya architectural style in that region. The word Puuc is derived from the Maya term for hill. The Puuc Hills extended into the northern Campeche and western Quintana Roo. This Puuc style, beginning at the end of the late Classic and flourished between the 6th and the 10th century. So when we go to Palenque, you're not going to see Puuc style architecture because Palenque dates back to 2600 BC. Like, how many years before the 6th century is that? That's 3,200 years before the beginning of the Puuc style architecture that flourished in this specific region. And it, even though it started in the 6th, it was actually occurring while the migration started happening in the northern parts. And then when the new areas, let's say, were being created in the 9th century for 100 years into the 10th century, we see it flourishing. So Uxmal, which we already experienced, is the most famous Puuc architectural site. It's decorated with carefully cut, this is how you can really tell if it's Puuc or not, is it's decorated with carefully cut veneer stones. Upper facades are richly decorated with intricate stone mosaics, alternating repeated geometric elements with more elaborate figurative sculpture. The Mayan rain god Chak was depicted a lot. And if you've ever seen my creation stories of ancient civilizations, or if you're watching this course now and you want to check out the creation stories of ancient civilizations, is that different gods were worshipped at different times based on the time of year, the century it has been, how long they've been around, and what was needed, what agricultural needs were, what agricultural needs the civilization may have had at the time. So the rain god Chak during the 6th to the 10th century was really prevalent and is depicted a lot all over these sites. Now here is a video of us at Kaaba. We're going to go through a few videos and images now of this area in Kaaba with commentary.
We are in Kaaba, which is another archaeological site that connects. It's not too far from Uxmal, around 25-minute drive from Uxmal, and here it is. It looks amazing. Very inexpensive to get into this one. Hardly anybody comes here because Uxmal is the main site. Tidbit of cool information is that the Mayans actually made Uxmal site to be in alignment with the stars in the Orion's belt, just like in Egypt, and they considered the Milky Way called the Great White Road. They would call it the Great White Road, and in a previous video I have what they called it, the name of it, and they had a white road, a white paved road from Uxmal, 25 minutes all the way down to this site of Kaaba, and that Great White Road was supposed to symbolize the Milky Way galaxy. Well, here we are. And we're here with our friend Jaime, who has been in this area ever since from the beginning, Mayan descendant. So it's pretty cool to be here with him. There he is. Dice hola, Jaime.
Hola.
Hola para la mundo, el mundo.
He says it's been a while since he's been here.
And the interesting thing is that some Mayan archaeological sites were actually like rediscovered later, but Uxmal in this area was never forgotten. And even after it was abandoned, people will come back here all the time. After Catholicism, after the conquistadors, they would keep coming back and always paying homage to the Uxmal site because of its alignment to the stars and its connection to their gods. It's a Mayan ghost.
Dice que es un espanto.
Wow, this is nice.
Fue una sorpresa para nosotros porque nosotros pensábamos que era el otro.
Okay. Here we are at the Mayan gym, ready to do some ab crunches up these steps. I guess we're not allowed to. So we just found out that this site, Kaaba, was one of the first sites that was built in this area. So I think Palenque is a little older, but around the Uxmal area, there's multiple sites that are all connected. And as I said in my previous video, to the Great White Road, which symbolizes the Milky Way galaxy. And this one was one of the first ones created before they actually went to Uxmal and created that too. So let's go up these steps. I heard there's a really huge iguana up here, so let's see if we can find it.
This is the main area right here. You can see in the top left-hand image. If you can look, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but right above this tree, right, is this temple right there. And we're going to go check that out in a second. Extremely amazing area. So Kaaba is one of the sites that has a lot of structures, pyramids, temples, houses in the jungle around it. So you see the jungle right here, right in front of, to the right of this tree above all these people. There are sites and structures all over it, but it's unexcavated. Or it's been excavated, but they're on private land because a lot of the land was sold off by the government quite some time ago now because they needed to raise money, and those individuals kept the land, or some of these people own the land for generations and still have the land. So there's sites that are part of this that you can't even visit. Some of them no one will ever get to visit because they're just on private land and you can't even go there, even though it's not hard to excavate. And then some of them are on private lands where people only allow private tours for a higher cost so that they can show you their structures that hardly anybody gets to see. another image from the top, and here's that temple that I just referred to, and you can get a better view right here of the jungle. So this jungle is strewn with different structures, and Kaaba is actually known. So many sites are speculated or kind of known that there are sites around it, structures around it that are probably still hidden. But a lot of these sites are actually known to exist and are there, and you can even, people can see them if you drive up to them on somebody's land, right? But they're just not touched because they are on private land. I really like this view. It just felt like something so ancient and majestic to me, just like looking inside and looking at these hieroglyphs and the Pook style architecture and the masks all around and also on the ground here.
This site has more hieroglyphs than I've ever seen at any Mayan site, and we've been to quite a few. Kaaba. They're 25-30 minutes from Uxmal. My God. I wish we could go inside that. Look at that. Look at that. It's so well preserved. Almost out of a movie, huh? Check out the hieroglyph graveyard behind us.
So Jaime says that the ones that are down there are actually the ones that belong up here where these rocks are.
Ah.
See how those are all new rocks? He says that's what it is.
Yeah. Switched them out.
Mm-hmm.
Basically the upper part of the temple, and all the rocks started falling down, so they just started stacking them in the yard right there. And here we go, Pook style architecture. Chalk, the rain god, right here depicted. And this is something that I'm just realizing right now, so I'm saying it to you as I realize it. So we have Chalk, the rain god, right? And the Pook style architecture starting around 6th century, really flourishing as the migration was occurring in northern parts of the empire. And there is speculation and I guess a bit of evidence to suggest that they left because of environmental changes. So it could be that Chalk became, the god that they really started worshiping and putting up on their structures is because their lack of rain or the changing in weather. So they had Chalk as the symbol, to bring back that in order to be able to have agriculture and can continue to flourish in these new areas.
Okay, we went into a little area that is forbidden.
But a local brought us, so
So
they said it was okay.
And Jaime actually worked for 5 years helping reconstruct some of these archaeological sites. What do we have here?
So that is the bottom part of a man, the legs, and then his center. And then this is the chest part and the arms. And it's believed that the head is down there because there's 2 ears, eyes, and nose, and that one behind there.
You heard me mention in there how Jaime helped excavate those areas for 5 years. If you ever go to, he actually worked at Kaaba. Like Jaime actually worked there and helped excavate some of that. And I think it was a European, I don't remember. It was either like Argentinian or someone in Europe that was the archaeologist that came to this area that he helped excavate. And if you go to any of these sites, and a lot of times it's excavation and reconstruction. Most of the time, it's reconstruction occurring, like almost all the time there. 2 out of the 3 times with the Uxmal, there's a whole entire site that we saw that was just being concentrated on for reconstruction. The individuals that are working these sites are Maya descendants. So just imagine how amazing it is, and kind of mind blowing to me really, is that these individuals there, right? So their ancestors were the ones that were in these structures hundreds to thousands of years ago, right? And then in the future, they are now part of regular society, civilization, the new cities and all that, the Western world. And now they're looking for jobs to be a part of this Western world. And part of the jobs that they're now getting as these Mayan descendants are jobs to excavate the pyramids that their ancestors did in the put together in the first place from people who aren't even from their area, right? It's just like, whoa. So it's interesting that they're basically there excavating it, and they have this huge connection, and their own descendants are really the ones that are helping bring it out. And it's also what we noticed is that the individuals that help excavate these structures are getting very, very little money for doing it. So they also found cheap labor in the Maya, and they utilize them because they can get many Maya people down there in order to help them with different structures for very low cost. Now, this video right here, I believe, is a video of a healing plant that Jaime told us about in this area.
And he said that these little leaves are also what they put in when they cook the underground meat, and we suppose that it's for taking away the toxins from the meat before you eat it, before it's cooked.
And it used to be used for babies mostly, but anybody can have it, right? But it would basically help them cure all types of illness.
Yeah, fevers.
Yeah.
It's known for curing fevers and removing toxins. It's true. And he was also telling us that he once in working in the pyramids and renovating, caught what they call an air, which some people say they catch when they're working the pyramids, and it means like a fever. They catch a fever and they get really ill. And he said he got that, and he had to have a limpia done, and they do the limpias with these as well.
That leaf is known to pull out toxins and help people and help break fevers as well. And what she was mentioning was that there's something known for people that are there helping excavate these pyramids, and it's something called the getting air, and they need to do a limpia, which is the cleansing, in order to purify them from it. And those leaves right there are actually what they use.
And he said that they had one that was like big tubs of things that they found there. It was 5 meters deep in tiny squares, and then they would find all kinds of stuff.
And he said that he excavated the jade turtle.
Yeah, he excavated.
He's probably like 18 years old.
Yeah.
So I cut that one off right there because he didn't want it to be recorded. We're having a conversation, but we're talking about the excavation of it all and what happened. But he's saying that when he was there excavating, that he actually helped find a jade turtle in that area, in that site. All right, now we're going to Palenque, which is an amazingly epic site that is not in the Puig style architecture, that dates back much earlier than that. We have evidence to suggest that at least in 2600 BC, it was beginning to be populated, and structures were being created around there. And here is a somewhat panoramic image of Palenque. And this right here is not even a fraction, not even a quarter of the whole area. That goes much, much larger, all the way into the jungle. And we're pretty high up on, I guess it's a hill, big hill, mountains, not really a mountain, but you do have to just go upwards, basically on this huge hill incline when you get to Palenque. So it is raised up quite a bit. Now at Palenque, there are over 1,400 unexcavated temples, and we're going to show you a few videos right now of us going to this area. When we go there, when you go there, when anyone goes there, you can go to 2 different areas. One is you can take a trek through the jungle, which will take you to the unexcavated temples that you can walk and trek around. We only even spent a little bit of time there. You could spend a whole day in that area and keep walking over pyramids and structures. And then there's the main excavated area with the main temples and pyramids over there. Um, and you can also, that one is pretty much open. We're going to show you that as well, where you can walk through it and go to the different pyramids. But firstly, let's go ahead and take a look at these unexcavated areas. The main reason for it is, firstly, they don't know everything that's in these pyramids and structures, but it does look like that most of these temples and houses were just that. They were houses that housed people, rather than the other site where you have the main structures that house the mathematicians, the astronomers, the elite were there, the ceremonies were done, the games were played. So let's go ahead and take a look now at the Palenque jungle.
Stairs of a pyramid, and you can see it because it elevates.
So that right in front of us is a pyramid, and we're standing on one right now.
¿Cuántos pirámides?
The
Temples.
base
1473.
1,473 1,473 unexcavated pyramids
pyramides.
in this area right here, and here's one of them. Wow, just wonder what's inside these things.
You talked on that thing.
So we're climbing up the steps of the unexcavated pyramid now. Oh, just rained the last 3 days, so it's extremely slippery.
Entonces estas piedras son
Las raíces del árbol. Y esta es la raíz de una liana. Mira cómo sigue el tronco y sigue hacia arriba.
Oh, so the roots have wrapped around from the bottom and then come back up as if it's a tree, but it's actually the roots, and it's now
Wow.
like a twin of the tree all the way up. Y vuelve a bajar también.
Vuelve a enredarse.
And then it comes back down to, like, it'll just wrap around up and down the whole until it stops growing.
El árbol ya está comido por dentro por las termitas, ya está hueco por dentro.
So it's hollow inside because the termites have eaten it.
Y sobre el tronco se pueden ver varias plantas. Muy bien. Y de aquí, estas pirámides.
¿Cuál es el año de pirámides?
Estas pirámides fueron del año 300 al 900 después de Cristo.
So here we have pyramids that are made después o antes.
Después de Cristo.
300 hasta
Al
900.
900. Hasta 900 después de Cristo.
So these pyramids were made 300 to 900 years after Christ.
So this is a newer construction than the main part of Palenque.
1000 años de abandonado.
So what he just said was that those structures, those housing, those dwellings, whatever they are, were created around, he said 300 to 900 years after Christ, right? So AD. So, which is around, so Palenque was actually created a couple thousand years before that. So these structures were one of the last phases of construction. And we have the same year now, 900 CE, which happens to be the time where we see a mass abandonment of these structures. So it is safe to probably note that these structures were the last ones that were created in the area before there was a mass migration out of Palenque. All the rocks that you see are pyramid rocks throughout all these videos that you're seeing, all these big chunks of stone everywhere. And here is a map of Palenque in Chiapas, Mexico. And I don't expect you to take this all in. It's pretty massive, but let's just take a little overview right here and look how huge this is. And this is just what they can actually map out in certain areas you can go to, including areas in the jungle. But chances are it's much bigger than this. You even see the waterways, the little rivers. It's really ideal location for civilization to thrive. And here's the map that they actually give you when you go to Palenque. Of this is the area. So we just saw images of us in the jungle, but this is the area of the excavated part that you can go into and see some of these sites, walk on top of most of them, and even go into some of them.
So here we have the top part of a pyramid that they call a cupola.
Is this the entrance?
Yes.
Has anybody gone inside this? No?
No.
All right, let's do it.
Small.
Yeah. Let's sit in here then.
Original Maya architecture.
All right.
It's possible to down. You walk here.
Mm.
The exit is there.
Oh, okay.
Short.
It's like a little small tunnel. En las días de Mayas.
So that was just imagine a pyramid, and at the top, you may have seen some images, and some movies even that show you the structure on top. That's the temple that you can walk through, that you can look like. If you're at the bottom of the pyramid, you see the structure on top, you can see the other side of it. And a lot of times that's where the priest would be hanging out. And I'm talking about, movies, what they show in those situations. Because honestly, we don't really know exactly how things went down because there's so much that's not understood yet. But that was what that area is. It's really the top of the pyramid, the temple right at the top of it. So Palenque, Mexico, around 200 BC to 799 AD, we see it flourishing, and it did exist hundreds, if not thousands of years before that. We have evidence of people settling in the area, a central hub for trade, commerce, diplomacy, and foreign affairs. It was overgrown, so it was extremely important. It was like a capital city would be important in regards to having a lot of the centralized information there when it comes to the stars, astronomy, research being done. And it's been overgrown by jungle and trees and is only now partially restored. Just like I've alluded to a few times in this presentation, is that there weren't as many trees and as much thick jungle as there is now back then. It's really, a lot of them has been taken over by the jungle. So many of those sites right there, especially where the unexcavated structures are, wasn't so full of trees, so much easier to navigate around. Many different ethnic groups are represented here, and we'll get into that in a minute. May have been an area for global affairs and great minds to share ideas. And it's important to note the global affairs. We're not just talking about Maya. We're just not talking about the Maya and Aztecs. We're talking about worldwide. It looks like maybe there was some sort of connection to a worldwide civilization here, where they were aware of other civilizations and tribes that existed. It truly is, for me, out of all the ones that we've been to, and I know there's a few that I haven't, including Tikul, which was one of the largest sites. It's one of the most impressive Maya sites. It's really breathtaking. And I was blessed to actually go there on my birthday not last year, the year before. So in 2019, we went on my birthday, and that was the first time we went. So all of those images, the video that we just saw, those were all taken on my birthday. And I really wanted to be there. I felt a huge connection to, of course, the Yucatan, but I definitely feel a huge connection to Palenque. So I wanted to be there on my birthday, and we made it all work out and got to experience that. Palenque was rediscovered and lost several times until 1841. So just like, I spoke about Uxmal, how they never forgot about it. It was always known. And how Altan Ha, it was forgotten about, and it was only rediscovered until the late 19th century, right? And so Palenque was actually rediscovered and lost many times until 1841, starting with the first abandonment that happened around 800 to 900 AD. Pakal the Great was probably the most well-known emperor of Palenque, and he lived from 615 to 683, and he was known for rebuilding Palenque. So Palenque had been around for quite some time at that point. So he was known for being this whole reconstructive phase and rebuilding Palenque. And now we're going to start our entrance into the main site. This is it. Okay, so that building right there, towards the top, that is the building where the astronomers, the mathematicians, the scientists, the politicians will all gather. And we're gonna go up those stairs, take a look inside where they used to have their meetings. First, we're gonna go in there. So the first time we went, we had a tour guide that really broke down a lot of things for us. The second time, which is what we're watching now, we went by ourselves to kind of look and explore further into what we've been told about Palenque. I'm gonna climb up this pyramid here. This is actually a temple.
There's no flash allowed.
It's very humid in here. Check it out. Burial chamber. All the people up there.
I'm gonna be outside.
Okay. Same in here. Seems like this was blocked off. It used to be something. In Palenque, there is a place called the Temple of Inscriptions, and it's one of the most well-noted places within that site. And the Temple of Inscriptions is an ancient name, and the ancient name was actually Lakama, which means big water. Its existence was unknown until 1773, when it was discovered by the Spanish explorer Ramon de Ordóñez y Aguilar. The 5 entrances in front of the building are surrounded by 5 piers with images and hieroglyphics. These tablets emphasize the idea that events happened in the past will be repeated on the same calendar date. So these hieroglyphs are basically saying that things that have happened in the past are going to be happening again when certain cycles are over. The second longest known Mayan inscriptions is located at this area in temple inscriptions, 617 glyph columns. So not 617 glyphs, but columns of glyphs. A few columns record of various events in Pakal's life. So these columns really started with Pakal. He was very much into not only reconstruction, but record keeping. He wanted to keep a record of his reign, but also a record of the history of the Maya Empire. If it wasn't for Pakal, many of what we know about Maya architecture and history and culture, we might not even have found out. All of the tablets, excluding the final 2 columns, were completed during his life, Pakal's lifetime, and a record approximately 180 years, 180 years of the city's history recorded during Pakal's lifetime. Here we go, Temple of Inscriptions. And this is an artist's depiction of how it looked during that time, right? So the color was different and the dye had come off. And this is what it looks like inside. You see the staircase inside of it? How cool is that? There's a pyramid structure that I pointed out in the first video of us entering into the Palenque site that was specifically utilized by the intellectuals, the scientists, the mathematicians, the astronomers, and all the ones that really contributed to the creation of a very advanced society. They lived and worked in this building. There was no new elite construction. So after 800, we don't see any new elite construction occurring. An agricultural population continued to live here for a few generations, but then the site was completely abandoned. So by the time the Spanish arrived in 1520, Palenque was entirely evacuated. Maybe there was some sporadic agricultural tribes there, but even from the history research, it seems that even by that time, which was another 600-700 years after the abandonment, there wasn't really that much going on in that area at all. The Spanish are here. So Juan Ponce de Leon, he sailed near Yucatan in 1513, and this is how the Spanish interacted and met the Maya. Juan Ponce de Leon sailed near the Yucatan in 1513 on his way to Florida. In 1517, while on an expedition to procure slaves, a conquistador known as Francisco Hernandez de Cordova, he arrived. So this was 1517. Cortez then sailed for the Yucatan on February 18th, 1519. So in 1517, Francisco Hernandez de Cordova arrived on the Yucatan Peninsula, but didn't explore it. He just touched down for a little bit. Cortez then came there on February 18th of 1519. He had 11 ships, 508 soldiers, and about 100 sailors, and 16 horses with him. In March of 1519, he landed at Tabasco, where he stayed for a time in order to gain intelligence from the local natives over there. And then he made his way, connected, and met the Maya. Here's an image of such a situation when Cortez made first contact. Now I'm going to show you here a panoramic image of Palenque just to get like a really cool view. So we're going to start from here. This is where I was standing. We have a pyramid structure that I'm right on top of a structure there. And yes, Palenque is a very popular place. It's one of the largest sites. So, and it's older than many other sites, so it definitely draws a huge crowd. This structure right here is just like breathtaking when you take a look at it. You see um, they have some construction going on right here to repair it, but this thing is just like beautiful on top of a hill. And maybe we'll get a video of it in a bit. Then the jungle, beyond the jungle are those unexcavated temples. Behind me of the pyramid I was on. And now this is me walking to another location in here. So let's take a little walking tour of Palenque. Temple of Inscriptions right there.
I want to be in the sun the least possible.
Are you gonna go up here with me?
Yeah.
I doubt it because the thing's right in the middle of the place that we saw. You want me to take a picture of you here? No, we went up this.
Now we're going to the top of the structure where a lot of astronomers, mathematicians, government officials, they would meet up and have conversations. Similar to, a Senate, similar to a Congress, but bringing in professionals from all types of
All right,
areas.
so this is where all the elite of the society, in a not negative way, the astronomers, politicians, scientists, artists.
Visitors from all over the world.
Yeah, well, they would come because the Mayans was a huge culture. The original culture 3,000 years ago definitely did trade with other cultures around the world. This is where they would meet. And then the other side we're going to go is where they actually would hang out and basically kind of like a court, kind of like a room where people from all over the world and all the scientists would gather and discuss.
As you can tell, I'm out of breath there.
See the hieroglyphs right there?
This is the courtyard where a lot of meetings would occur. Actually, and in the other area as well. You're about to see.
Moliendo concha de caracol, agua y arena. Aquí no se ocupó baba de nopal, por el motivo que Checa no se ocupó muy bien. Entonces tuvieron que utilizar la resina de un árbol llamado.
All right, here it is, the main
This
area
is where
on top of this
basically they
structure.
would all come sit on these steps right here and discuss matters.
World matters.
World matters, matters about society, and also forge. This right here is where the Mayan culture was forged, where there's evidence here to suggest that the Indians from India were here, one of the tribes of Abraham was here, Egyptians came here, the Chinese were here. There's even an area where we're gonna look for where there's a dragon that represents the Chinese people that were here. So let's say around 3,000 years ago, people from all over the world, before the Mayans were the Mayans, came here and built this civilization and would gather in this area and crafted what we now know as the Mayan Empire.
And they say that
civilization.
giants roamed here and that they're actually giant people. And they used to have basically what we would call an orgy and different orgies from the women. But it was like a peaceful type of like a spiritual thing.
Like sacred sexuality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It really looked like that this area was a place where the Mayan civilization was really mapped out and put together. So what has been speculated about is that this area could have been, at the beginning of the Mayan civilization, really, that different tribes and cultures from around the world came to this area, and the Mayan civilization was an experiment on how they can bring the best of all of their civilizations and craft what we then knew, what then became the Mayan civilization. So my theory is, and I'm being very careful with what I'm saying here because this isn't commonly accepted. It's not really spoke about, but evidence is coming out that there is a lot more to discover here. And part of that is that there is themes that many other civilizations from around the world came to this area to have meetings with whoever lived here, and some of them even stayed and created this whole civilization. So could it be that the Maya wasn't an exact tribe that it became, but there were multiple tribes from all over the world that blended together over thousands of years and then became what we currently know as the Maya descendants? And I would say the evidence suggests yes. And the reason why is if you look at the Maya architecture and their artwork, it has a lot of influences from, ancient India, from China especially. And then if you listen to the dialect, the way they speak, it's almost like a combination between like a Chinese dialect, Sanskrit, and their hieroglyphs definitely have a connection to ancient Egypt. So could it have been that the Mayan civilization was actually a descendant of multiple great civilizations sharing what it was that made them so great at what they did, from the spirituality in the East to the architecture in China, and then they came here and did this. So I really think that is what probably did happen. A lot more information needs to come out for that, especially the fact that there's over 50% of the Maya structures that are unexcavated, unexplored. And a lot of their scriptures and texts were destroyed a long time ago. So if we're ever going to find out if that's the case or not, maybe we will, maybe we won't. Maybe we can do DNA testing and see how far back we can go. But there's something there, and it definitely occurred in Palenque. Okay, so now this one right here is, we're in the same area, right? And this entire area actually used to have a roof. And just like we had seen in Kaaba, how many of these structures fall down from the roof, this whole roof actually caved in, and now slabs of the roof are put all the way around the area just for people to see and kind of take a look at and even feel.
All right, so last time we were here, unfortunately, we can't go into that side right now. It's closed off for some reason. But you see that slab right there, and the slab on the right-hand side. Those are actually part of the roof originally. This whole thing had a roof over it. And even though they're solid rock, and we have a clip that I'm going to look for at home, see if I can plug it in here. When you hit those rocks, they make these harmonics, these beautiful harmonics. Whereas when they were over here and as the roof, when they were part of the roof, when it would rain, when there would be wind, and this is like a wind tunnel, like wind would literally come through here, just the way it's structured, that they would make harmonic sounds on there. And then we would have all the ancient cultures around this area right here getting together to discuss politics, science, astronomy, spirituality, all of that stuff. And at the same time as they're doing that, whenever the wind would come through and it would rain, it would create these frequencies that will basically bombard all these people in here. So the theory is that we both have is that those frequencies were harmonics that were designed to uplift, enlighten, activate chakras. There's a chakra symbol here. And many other cultures in the ancient past had similar structures that also had harmonics that was specifically designed to create that frequency within them. Whereas in India, for example, we actually have pillars that were made to give you the same sounds as the solfeggios, which in Indian scriptures are actually saregama and not sol, re, mi, da, which actually represent each of the chakra symbols.
Also in Egypt, they have these, I think, also pillars that we've yet to see, but I've been told that when the wind blows, it's the same type of thing. So pyramids and structures were known to have sound frequency from nature.
So that
was really helpful to humanity.
To recap what you just saw right there, is that these sites have some amazing awareness of acoustics and sound and vibration in them, right? We spoke about Hampi, India in this last video, which is where they had the Sarigama pillars that you can see in multiple other courses and presentations I've done, including the Ultimate Sound Frequency course, where I show you that these pillars, just regular stone, and you cut them open, regular stone, but when you play them, have this acoustics, this resonance, this sounds like Tibetan bowls. But when the British went there and they cut it open, they just looked like regular rock. They were like, what is this? So this we discover all over the world. The ancients had this advanced awareness of sound and frequency, and they utilized it in the creation of structures. But the really beautiful part is that they knew how to organically use sound and frequency, whereas now we're using a lot of external equipment and awareness in order to create these sites, but they were using organic structures to do similar things. So that stone slab that I pointed out there, that used to be on top of the roof. There are windows, and I think you might be able to see a little window here that's kind of like a, it's like a plus sign, but only half of a plus sign really is how the windows are. But they've created these amazing wind tunnels, right? The way they created these structures not only had sound and frequency in mind, but they also had ventilation in mind. They created these epic acoustic structures without ACs and incorporated ventilation. And the way this structure was created was there were certain windows put in place that would channel the vibration and channel the air, the wind into this room. And these feelings were created off these slabs that had the similar acoustic and resonant effects like the Hampi stones, like Tibetan bowls, like the pillars in Egypt, and so much more. So now we know that this area was utilized for the elite of society. And I need to make a disclaimer when I say that. I don't mean elite in the negative sense that we speak about it nowadays about these elite taking over. I just mean the ones that really were the ones cultivating and creating the society, from the government, from the mathematicians, from the scientists, and so on. So they were over here in this area, but the structure, the roof that they were in, when it would rain, when it would when the wind would come through, would create these beautiful oscillating frequency sounds. So to me, I was pretty amazed. We were both amazed that not only was this an area for enlightenment where people from all over the world came to share their ideas, but also the structure was created to further contribute to creating a frequency so that the people that were here sitting in this area could absorb that vibration. And that's almost to me like a direct connection to source, making sure that all these conversations were elevated. And even the pyramids, we know the pyramids are resonant frequency. I mean, the pyramids in Egypt were resonant frequency creating devices. And there's a lot of information on there, including a documentary called The Pyramid Code that really explains it all. And these devices were utilized for people to go into to shift their consciousness to other levels of existence and other realities so that they can bring down that information and live and implement it in this modern time, or even use, like in Egypt, for example, as a portal to the other world, to the afterlife, by being buried in a chamber that is emanating frequencies that can create that rainbow bridge to that other world. So it seems like similar awareness was utilized here at Palenque.
So just imagine this. When we came here last week, we learned this piece of information. So let's just say, recap, 3,000 years ago, civilizations from all over the world, advanced civilizations, all sent groups of people around the world, and many of them ended up here. The ones that we know ended up here are the Chinese. There's evidence here for that. There's evidence here that the Indians from India were here. The Egyptians were here. One of the tribes of Israel was here. And they all coalesced in this area, discussed matters, and the Mayan civilization was born. They brought the best of each of their cultures, and they created something beautiful, which is why in Mayan text you have yoga, you have chakra symbols. There's a chakra symbol somewhere here too. I don't know if we can find it because we don't have a guide this time. We got to go look. And then there's the dragon from the Chinese. There's different symbols that represent these other cultures.
And here is one of the windows that I was telling you about that are created perfectly in the right position as well in order to channel the wind into this area. and create really great ventilation. You can see that one was closed off. So now here comes the question of where did the Maya go and did they even go anywhere? Well, we do know that Palenque and the surrounding areas were almost entirely evacuated by 900 AD in the classical period, leaving only a few agricultural tribes around. And also around 900 AD, almost all of the major cities in the heart of the Maya civilization in northern Guatemala and neighboring portions of Mexico, Belize, and Honduras were abandoned. So not just the area around Chiapas and Tabasco and Palenque, but even further south, all the way down south into Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. So we have the Yucatan Peninsula, right? We have Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras. All the way to this area, we have Mayan in Palenque, all the way to this area in Honduras, right? There was a mass migration both ways to the center of the Yucatan, to the full Yucatan, going from Uxmal, going from Merida area, all the way to Tulum and Playa del Carmen. So they came in, the civilization became smaller and also smaller in numbers. They migrated to areas between Campeche and Uxmal to Tulum and Playa del Carmen. One of the probably one of the most credible reasons why they moved was catastrophic environmental changes. Don't forget that these civilizations had been around for 1,000+ years. Some of these areas. So catastrophic environmental changes could have been the reason why they had to migrate and go to where a more flourishing, humid, near the ocean, a lot of water supplies, all these cenotes, right? That we spoke about earlier. So they went to this area that had much more to offer them. One of the theories of where they went was the ancient aliens theory. Tikal, Guatemala, which is the largest city of the classical Mayan period, was one of the last cities to be abandoned, and the population dropped from 20 million in the entire peninsula. And right now we're at about 6 million Maya living in the peninsula. The ancient aliens theory also suggests that the disappearance was at the end of one of the calendar periods, and a new calendar, so 900, around 900, around, actually it's around 838 AD was the end of the calendar period. So a new calendar was created at the time, and the calendar was called the long count. The count of the long count is 5,125 years. That's one great cycle. You divide that into 13 units. Now we have the number 13 again, which is about 400 years each. So each of the 13 units is around 400 years, which is called a baktun. So 1 over 13, 400 years is 1 baktun. 13 baktuns equals 5,125 years. So this right now, when they started doing the mass migration, was at the end of one of these baktuns. And in 838 AD, the baktun celebration did not happen. The celebration at the end of the baktuns were huge. It was such a spectacle to witness. But at the end of this baktun, which was the end of one of the 13 cycles, there was no celebration. There was in 800 AD, sacred sites began to be abandoned. The Maya believed that the Pleiades is the home of their ancestors. So this is the ancient aliens connection. There is text and information passed down that say the Maya believed that they had some sort of connection and ancestry to beings that came from the Pleiades. The Maya say their ancestors went home to the Pleiades. Not all of them say that. If you watch a documentary, for example, this one on ancient aliens on History Channel, they'll say that the Maya say their ancestors went home to the Pleiades. Go down to Yucatan Peninsula, find 100 local Maya, ask them, you might get one person that says that, because it's not commonly accepted by all of them, but some of them that are really deeply into this information or even into the ancient alien theory have spoke about that. So there is evidence to suggest that the Maya were aware of and had communication with otherworldly beings. So such as the frequency technology embedded in the structures and what I'm going to show you in just a bit here. So we do have information that suggests that they could have been in contact with otherworldly beings or have some sort of descendants from them. But just because they're descended from these beings from the Pleiades doesn't mean that they went back home there, right? That is the connection there. Just because they say that they're descended from them does not mean that they went back home to the Pleiades. There is a book called Bringers of the Dawn. Some of you may have heard of it, by Barbara Messiniak. And also another book by Lisa Royal called Prism of Lyra. And in that book, in those books, it talks about the Pleiadians being the original Earthlings, right? So the Pleiades, the Pleiadians, if you want to get into this ET question here, is probably really an ancestry for the entire planet, not just this one specific tribe that had a connection and the Pleiades came back and got them. The Pleiadians actually came to our planet as according to these books and other researchers and channelers, before humans as we know it were even created. The Pleiadians had left our planet when the Lyrans and the Syrians came to this planet because they did not want to be and exist with the Lyrans and Syrians because of so much bad past karma that they had with these civilizations that they didn't want anything to do with them. So they were called the original Earthlings. When the genetic hybridization program occurred, when ETs came back here, when the Syrians did it, when the Lyrans were doing it with the Syrians, when the Anunnaki did it, and maybe more times throughout our vast history, when that occurred, the beings that were on the planet at the time attempting to do a hybridization program actually needed the DNA and the assistance of the Pleiadians because they had already been on Earth and their DNA had already been embedded into some of the primitive animals and ourselves. The whole connection to the Pleiades is plentiful, but it seems like it's a global phenomena where the Pleiadians had a really huge role on our planet in general. And that needs to be said with a disclaimer as well. These constellations are huge. There are many stars there. Pleiades has multiple stars and a lot of planets. So when you speak of a specific race, it doesn't have to be just one group of beings or that looked a specific way. So these cultures were much more diverse than we are aware of when we just say the word Pleiades. So there is evidence to suggest that the Maya were aware and had communication with otherworldly beings. And this image here is the Rocket Man image that was the Rocket Man inscription that was actually found in Palenque. And this has now been taken from Palenque to the museum in Mexico City. And in Palenque, they actually have a fake version of this now that they've created just for people to view. But for a lot of people, this is the smoking gun of them having some ET connection. And the reason why they call it a Rocket Man is because it's believed to be a rocket with all these gadgets and bells and whistles around it and some sort of being that is riding this rocket. Others have speculated that this person here is actually Pakal because, Pakal created most of the inscription columns, hieroglyphic columns in that area, had an invested interest in documenting 180 years of history. And this could be him or his homage, an homage to him. So is it an ET? Is it Pakal going into another world? We don't know. Here's a little closer view of it. And now this is the vertical view of the Rocket Man. So it looks like he's holding the steering wheel, right? Blasting off. And we have all these otherworldly beings and figures around. So is this, look at this smiley face right here too. That's another thing as well. And a lot of these images and hieroglyphs, especially if you go to museums and you see a lot of like joyous, happy, smiling kind of images. And that was really a Maya trait where it was like embedded with joy. The ancient alien theory continues here where statues such as these have supposedly been discovered, right? And we have one here. What does the one to the left look like? Looks like a UFO. I mean, no question about it. And even the inscriptions on each side of those look like pyramids. And then we have to the right here, we have this image that looks like kind of like an ET with slanted eyes, maybe something to do with a gray ET or some sort of being that came to Earth. However, the reason why I put here artifactal hoax is you'll see many different documentaries within Disclosure, within Ancient Aliens, that say that these are real. Actually, I feel like every single one I've seen has actually said that. However, there is no evidence to suggest these are real at all. We can't find them anymore. They were found, discovered, put out on the internet, and now we don't know even where they are. We don't know even if they existed in the first place. We don't know who found them, right? So yes, these could definitely be true, but the fact that we can't track it back at all puts a ounce of doubt in there that you cannot say it's 100% real if you have even an inkling of doubt. I personally believe that the Maya did have a huge connection to extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, or just a realm of consciousness through meditation, through frequencies, through astronomy, or whatever. However, if this is the one, is if this actually occurred and if this is real, I do not know. And no one really knows. And if you did a simple search of this and you try to track it back yourself, you'll have as much information proving it's a hoax as you do, actually more information trying to say that it's a hoax than that saying it's real. But that needs to be said with a grain of salt as well, because so much of this information is just said to be a hoax. When there are things that come out that are really true, that can really change the conventional timeline, people go ahead and say it's a hoax. We live in a world of such disinformation. It's so hard to use discernment when you want to believe firstly. So you really need to take a step back. You can still have your belief, but then also process the facts of the situation. This looks real, this looks legit. Oh, there's no backing to it, there's no person that we can find, we don't know where these are located. I want it to be real, but I'm not going to really go ahead and say that this is the reason why they had alien contact. Now, here is what has been taught to me, at least in school, which was the Spanish did it. You know, they came down here, they brought disease down there, they brought disease. People died by the millions from sicknesses. That definitely happened, probably more so in the North America, right, with the native tribes here in, in the U.S., the current U.S. But when the Spanish arrived, they found completely abandoned cities, like completely abandoned cities. It took the Spanish almost 2 centuries to fully conquer the Maya. It's not like the Maya died in 50, even 100 years from mass disease. It took them 2 centuries to do it. The Spanish did not wipe them out, since the cities were already abandoned and a huge population actually still remains there. They did, however, gain the support of some Maya communities to help in fighting against the Aztecs, who have been aggressive towards the Maya for years. So the real huge shame was that there had been so much conflicts and internal conflicts between neighboring tribes and civilizations that had lasted at that point for hundreds, if not thousands of years, like 1,000+ years, for some of these conflicts to have become what they became. So when the Spanish came, just like how it happened really all over the Americas, north to south, and other places in the world too, is that the conquistadors, let's just talk about this area, came and they made local, pacts with local tribes, and then they enterprised off the fact that they didn't get along, or maybe wanted the other tribe to be completely abolished, and they utilized that for their own benefit in order to bring down everyone really in that area and be the conquerors. So the Maya were very important in helping the Spanish fight the Aztecs, because the Aztecs had been aggressive towards the Maya for years. They'd even treated them as slaves. They would get them, they would win local wars and battles, right? Local battles with them. And they would take them as indentured, well, not even indentured servants, but straight up slaves. They would take them as slaves in order to help build their own empire. But the real thing is that the Maya are still there. The Maya today number about 6 million people, making them the largest single block of indigenous people north of Peru. So I'm going to say that again, 6 million people. So now let's go back to 900 CE, right? 20 million people, around 800 CE, we could say, we're always estimating here because we really don't know. 800 CE, 20 million people in the Mayan area, right? Now, how many years after are we? We are, what's that? 1,200 plus years after the time when there was 20 million Maya. Now we have around 6 million. So to say that, that is around 14 million people dying isn't really the case, because that is expanded over, 1,200 years. And the migration into those smaller areas, they weren't as populated, and they weren't going back out and flourishing again. The population was slowly getting smaller and smaller and declining up until now. So there was definitely wars that occurred, battles between the Aztecs and maybe some with the conquistadors as well. But mainly it was a migration issue. They moved out of that area. There's even evidence to suggest that there was another asteroid that hit around 800 CE, creating different climate changes and issues in the area where Palenque is, and even south of around the Honduras, that made them have to go to this area. So when they went there over 1,200 years, the population slowly decreased. But 6 million people is quite a lot living in that area, right? That claim to be descendants from Maya. The largest Maya groups are found in Mexico, such as the Yucatecs, which is around 300,000 members of that tribe. The Tzotzil, which is 120,000, and the Tzetzal, let me see if I can say that right, Tzeltal, which is 80,000 members. For the first time in these remote villages that connect these cities, if you remember, go back to one of the maps that I showed you, where I showed you Uxmal, we had Muna, we had Tikul, we had Santa Elena, all around each other. Uxmal is the major area, but all these other ones are villages and cities. Some of them are bigger than others, and going all the way down, even all the way to Tulum, the roads that connect those areas, and Playa del Carmen, you have small villages, and in all these villages, the predominant descendants there are all Maya. At these hotels that you go to, and people that are serving you and working at these hotels are all Maya. They speak in Maya dialects to each other, and that is the common language that they speak before they even speak Spanish. So did they vanish? No, they're still there. There's 6 million of them there. They're still speaking their own language as the number one language. And this is the first generation, the first time in history that Maya is not being taught in the schools in the Yucatan Peninsula. So our friend Jaime, when he went to school, he's he's in his 30s, right? So when he went to school, they taught Maya. It was a common language to learn. And now his children are going to school, and they've just recently stopped teaching Maya. So it's not only prevalent, it's not only there and they didn't vanish, but only now in 2020, 2021, and just a little before, are they actually not teaching the language anymore. So this civilization is such an old, ancient civilization, and the culture and the information and the dialect still exist, right? And now it's actually been, this could be an entirely different presentation. This whole other component of it all is the combination of Maya and Catholicism becoming one. Because now you go and talk to these Maya, I mean, they're all Catholic, right? But they still follow Maya traditions and rituals that like Catholics from Europe were probably looked down upon. So just looking at the way that they mingle together, and even if you go to Temescal, you see and you hear certain Catholic rites being spoken by them, but it's 100% Maya, and with the 100% intention of purity, cleaning, and all of these ancient rites. However, Catholicism is embedded into the culture now. It's become one. It's merged into one. There are some that are just 100% following the way. And, Laura Eisenhower, for example, has been down there. She went down there in 2019, and she connected with some of those people that did ceremonies in order to bring forward the fifth world. So that is occurring as well. So as I said, most employees that you meet and you interact with definitely are of Maya descendant in the area. And the Spanish were not entirely responsible for the drop in population. That's not the case at all. They're still there right now. And when we spoke to Jaime and we asked him and Martin in the interview that is on our YouTube channel, when we asked him and said, what would you want the world to know? Right? And he goes, we're still here. We didn't go anywhere. Stop thinking that we left. They really want people to know that they're there. And then he also says, come and visit Santa Elena. So hopefully some of you guys will join us and we can go down there and visit Jaime and spend a few days in that area, but go really all the way around the whole Yucatan Peninsula. All right, everybody, we're coming to a close now on the presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm going to talk now about the Ancient Mayan tour that we're going to do, and then talk about a couple of other events that you can check out. Some I've done already, some I'm going to do, and then also take questions. So if you have any questions at this point, go ahead and leave in the Q&A area, and I'll get to them in a moment here. But if you're interested at all in going down to the Yucatan, experiencing almost everything that I showed you here, most of those sites, and cenotes. You can see some images here. The beaches, we're going to be in Tulum and Playa del Carmen. We have options for just one person. We have options for if you're a couple, and then also it's going to be that the cost to go is going to cover your hotel, your flight, your food, your activities, everything, everything except for the free day where you go and have your own meals during that day. So we're trying to make it as efficient as possible, where you just pay one sum and then we cover everything, including transportation. And that's going to be November 17th to 24th of 2021, as long as everything goes according to plan. And then we're going to do that every single year, take different speakers with us, because it's like the most amazing place for me in the world. I love the Yucatan so much. I like just thinking about it makes me so happy, thinking about Jaime down there. And when I go back, it's just like I can't even, words can't really express the energy that you really get to experience going down there. So if you want to go there, let me know, email us. I'll send you more details, or check it out under the live events page on the website. And here is just the schedule of what we do when we go down there, what we're going to be doing. You know, day one, we arrive in Merida. We check in the hotel and we have my birthday dinner. We do day two, we headed down to Uxmal, and we're there from the 18th. We go to the archaeological site that day. We check in the Eco Hotel, and then we go on day three to three different sites. So we go to Santa Elena, ancient sites there. We go to Caba, and we go to Sayil, which is a very lesser known site that very few people go to. And it doesn't, you have to go off a dirt road even to get to the entrance of it. And then on day four, we go to we're in Santa Elena, and we leave and we go to another lesser known site called Ochintok. And then we end up in Playa del Carmen. While we're in Santa Elena, we're going to do Temescal every single day. And we're going to visit the Mayan cardinal points that have now become the cardinal points. This is another thing that the Catholics had done when they came down to these areas, and they do all over the world really, is that they find the spiritual areas, the spiritual centers that were utilized by these tribes, and then they build a church on top of it, or a cross, or some sort of shrine on top of it, to basically one up, you know, the culture there. So we visit the cardinal points, but the cardinal points were points that were allocated from ancient times by the Maya to be specific areas of high frequencies and energy. And now there are little shrines on top of it that are, you know, Catholic shrines that have been put there hundreds of years ago. So we also go visit that, and we kind of see the history of it all. And then that night on day four, we're going to have dinner at Playa del Carmen, the beach overlooking the ocean. And then day five, we go cenote, and that's our free day. Day six, Playa del Carmen, another cenote, the Tulum archaeological sites, a day tour in Coba. And then day seven, back to Merida, explore the city at night, and then go home the next day. So if any of you are interested, just shoot me an email. I'll give you my info here in a bit. And some other presentations I've done that you can check out on our website, or you can check out the courses that are going to be coming out on this, where I'm going to keep making them bigger and bigger. And today's presentation I did for, oh, wow, we went for 3 hours and 20 minutes. So a good hour over what I thought it would be, because I don't check time when I do these, I just create them. But this presentation really could be another 2 hours long, because there's so much information and videos that I didn't even get to share. So coming down with us will allow you to see that. But this presentation here is creation stories of ancient civilizations, and I've gone through hundreds, maybe up to 300 different ancient stories, creation stories, origin stories, where I dissect the similarities and the commonalities between them all, and also the differences, and then dissect time and origin stories into two things: prehistory origin stories and Earth history origin stories. Prehistory is before linear time, when the void existed. Earth stories are stories of how things occurred on Earth, the drama that played out on Earth in order for us to come to where we are now. And then another one, the Ultimate Sound and Frequency webinar, which is a 4+ hour presentation currently available for free on our website. And in this one, I break down everything from ancient civilizations and sound frequency to quantum physics and sound frequency, metaphysics, future technology and application of sound frequency. So it's called the Ultimate Sound and Frequency webinar for a reason. I even go down different sound tools and instruments and how to utilize it. This is the just a part of what I'm going to be doing soon, which is in April. I'm doing a 6-week sound course where I'm going to do sound healing training, giving presentations, and then also providing a lot of information on ancient use of sound frequency, and also the how to play sound tools, right? And then last presentation that I'm going to be doing that if you were at the Walk-ins conference, you got an opportunity to experience is Galactic Origins, Dimensions, of Black Holes, which is probably one of my favorite presentations I've ever put together, where we're going to explore the galactic origins of humanity and how dimensions of black holes tie into the karmic process. All right, everybody. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you all very much. I love every single one of you. If you're interested in learning more, go to portalextension.org, take a look at online events. You all have access, unlimited replay access to this presentation. There's hundreds of other presentations you get access to. Please do support us. You can support us on our Patreon. You could join us on this tour. You could sign up for any future events. And here is my email if you want to contact me and ask anything, especially about the tour. It's neilpta@gmail.com. And my Instagram is at MC_resonance. And you can follow my conscious poetry, my conscious hip hop there, and also learn about events that we have coming up. All right. So now I'm going to take a look and see if we have questions here. How was that for everybody? We did a journey through the Maya Empire via Zoom during quarantine. All right, let me look at the questions here. Okay, Samuel. Okay, increase the volume. I'm sorry, brother. I didn't see this till now. Hopefully my volume was okay for most of you. And I'll try to raise it on the replay so you can see it, okay? All right, do you know of or have you been to Templar Cave in Brazil and the 2-foot wide quartz path that leads to it? No, I have not, but what you could do is send me an email on that because I wouldn't mind checking that out. So I'm gonna leave my email here, neilpta. So contact me if you want to go to this tour this year, next year, want to put a deposit down, want to know more about it. Contact me. Also, if you can, anonymous attendee, if you could tell me about the Templar Cave in Brazil, I could probably look it up, but if you have info, send that to me. Alton Ha, no connection to Amun Ra because it was actually, they do not know what the original name was at Alton Ha. That was a name that was given to it later in around 1950 onwards when they discovered it. Why is the stonework so different compared to the sites in Peru? So the stonework is different because the different cultures at different times, really. And just like how the stonework in the US for indigenous tribes thousands of miles away were very different as well. There are similarities, and it looks like that maybe were even descendant from some people from Peru. But in Peru, there were so many different tribes that had influence. There was we have documentaries with Brian Forrester on our YouTube channel. You should look into the different tribes there. But just to name a few, we have the Inca, we have the Paracas, so many different cultures, and they all had distinct pottery. They had distinct ways of creating the structures. So the culture and the structure and the architecture is really an emergence of not just that tribe, but all the ones around it as well. So the Olmec, for example, they were right there next to the Maya for so long, and they had a good relationship. They were trading information and even information on how to create these sites. The cenotes are not hot springs. They're just regular temperature, like whatever the temperature is outside. I jumped into one. The weather there is almost always great. Like this is 1 month where it might be a little colder, but it's not even cold compared to where you're at, for example, Omar, in Canada, right? So it's just a little bit lower than body temperature, not too much. It's pretty easy to jump into in almost any time of year, but they're not hot springs and they're not heated, and there's no lava or underground volcano activity at all. The taste of the drink, right, it's bitter but delicious. That's the way I could explain it. So cacao, if you go to any grocery store really at this point and purchase some cacao and then put it in hot water. So put cacao in there and then put hot water in there, mix it, taste it. You'll taste the bitterness, but you'll taste good. And then add some almond milk in there if you want to, make it a little sweeter and make it just more neutral. Not really sweeter, but more of a neutral taste. And if you have cacao drink with almond milk, some people can't even tell the difference between regular cocoa. If you add a little bit of something sweet to the cacao, it takes on that sweet flavor. One of my favorite things to do is banana with almond milk and cacao. Tastes like a chocolate banana milk, but it's 100% pure energy. The name of the eco-friendly place, I do need to find out. So I'll try to find that out at another point, and you can email me about it. All right. So Lotus is asking here, please mention in context the human sacrificial aspects that applies to this talk. In historical retrospect and culturally going forward, it traces evolution and just more about it on light of Ascension teachings, purification, and the nonviolent movement and vegetarian. Do less harm to ourselves and to one other's lifestyle. I think it was considered ceremonial and appropriately performed spiritually, just to know a little bit about the topic. Yeah, that's going to, I didn't add that into here. There's a whole other topic that I would probably have to bring into another presentation. But yeah, and it didn't happen the whole entire time as well. And certain areas didn't actually utilize human sacrifice. So it happened at certain times. And now if we look at the history of why it happened and what occurred and what was going on and what kind of scarcity they had and lack and fears, you know, maybe specific people and emperors and kings felt that it was the way in order to bring the rain or whatever, but it wasn't the case for the whole 3,000 year span of the civilization. The hotel rooms are single occupancy. However, you have a big bed. It's not like most of these places are going to have like a queen or king size bed. So single occupancy. So when it's two people, that's why it's a little bit of a discount because you're going to utilize the same room, but we're really charging for the travel, the entering the destinations, the places, the separate hotel. So that's all been worked out in the price. That's for you, John. All right. So let's see here. Halima is saying, no question, just gratitude for your and Soul's fantastic efforts, sharing so brilliantly and generously with us. I've learned so much from you today. We send great blessings to you both, Jaime, and all of you, and all you're doing. Super love. Thanks. Hope to see you in the next venture. Thank you so much, Halima. Like, made my heart warm right there. Love you. Thank you. And Cody Scott is asking, was it aliens? And who built the megalithic sites underneath the smaller Mayan stonework? Okay. So was it aliens? I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no. But from my experience in the world, a lot of things do connect to an extraterrestrial connection, right? Whether it was happening in that moment, whether thousands of years ago, right? The tribes of which the Mayas descended from had some connection to ETs, or if the Maya were channeling and connected to ETs, or if they landed, none of those, there's enough evidence for me to say that is the case, but I do believe there's some sort of connection there. And who built the megalithic sites? There's also stories about giants that were there that built those sites. And if you go to places like Peru and you see that on top of these megalithic sites, right, you have stonework that is much more ancient than the stonework below it, which goes to show you that the people that existed before these other sites were created on top were actually more advanced architecturally than the people that came later. But it doesn't always have to be a different type of people. Don't forget, some of these civilizations were around for 2,000 plus years. So maybe they had 500 years of a great advancement, and then they had some sort of fall, some sort of king or emperor that didn't lead them correctly, or there was some sort of drought, something occurred, and then they didn't have the same wisdom in order to build these sites. So if they were, you know, of another civilization or ETs or giants that they were there before, or were there also Maya individuals that eventually, you know, lost some of this wisdom and built other structures, that's all speculation too. And I'm not going to ever say something is 100% if there's a doubt. Okay. Yes. All right. So that's all the questions right there. I'm gonna look in the chat room right now. Judy is saying, will the group fly together? Yeah. So if you are in an area where other people are flying from, my intention is to have people fly at the same time because we're all going to get there at the same time anyway. So if you're coming from LA, I got a feeling that, you know, since we're in this area, there'll probably be a few friends that we know in this area that will be flying out, and other people that are here, they'll fly together. But if you're the only person from Connecticut, you'll be the only person there. But we will time everything so that you can get there around the same time. My intention is to hopefully have you all arrive on November 17th around 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon so that you have time to check into a hotel. We'll arrange your Uber for you. So you get to the hotel. We got the hotel driver there waiting for you, has the sign up. You come out, you see it, get in the car, go to your hotel, check in, and then Soul and I will show up. probably give each other a huge hug, and then we're gonna go out and explore the town, and that's how the it's gonna begin. And yes, you can fly directly from Vancouver. No, you can fly directly from Vancouver to Mexico City, and then Mexico City will take you to Merida. That's how it goes. Normally, Mexico City is the stop off. Do I need a visa to enter country? No. If you're a Canadian citizen, you do not need a visa to go to Mexico. All right, everybody. I think that is it. Let me see here. I'm just taking one last look. Okay. You have a friend of Maya descent. Can you assume he's part alien? Well, I would say if you can assume your friend's part alien, I would say why can't you assume you're part alien too? You know, because I really feel that we all have DNA connected to the stars. All right, this is it, everybody. The final leg, the final chapter is about to not close, but is about to be done so we can create a new chapter. And I hope you guys enjoy this. It looks like you did. I'm going to end today with a spoken word piece. And I speak so much during these things that my voice almost always feels like it's going to go out at the end. And look, I got this thing online, which is a throat thing for computer IT people that speak too much on webcam, and it's literally like echinacea, but it's for your throat. It's just for it's like a but it's used by business professionals. It even has like business names on it and stuff. All right, so I'm gonna do a presentation, a spoken word piece here, a poem to close us out for the day. But before I do that, let's do what we started out with. We're going to just take a few breaths together and pay reverence. Because the reason why I do these presentations, and I really recommend you seeing my creation stories and ancient civilizations, because it's like a 3-hour storytelling of ancient stories and then drawing how they're all connected. Oh, all these stories talk about ETs. All these stories talk about the same ETs. All these ones talk about sound and frequency, right? So take a look at that, because my intention for this is to pay reverence for information that we do not know about these ancient cultures. So there's some information that we do know that I maybe didn't touch on because I wanted to concentrate on things that I'm finding and discovering with my wife. So it's really about paying reverence to our ancient story of humanity that isn't just of this planet, but really goes back into the galactic history of how we even got here in the first place. And this story of the Maya is just one of countless stories of our creation. And even there are stories that have probably completely been lost to time that we may never rediscover. Let's say Atlantis existed, right? Let's say what people are saying around 13,000 years ago was the beginning of the decline of Atlantis, but humans have been on this planet for much longer, going back to the land of Lemuria, Omu, and even further. So all these stories of our history have been lost to time, and it's okay because that's just part of the experience on Earth. It's not like we need to, we're losing something spiritually by not being sentimental about our past. It's not like you're losing. You can be completely present, focusing on this moment, and not know about the past, and not really be, you know, not doing anything negative by doing that, right? So when I say these stories, when we talk about these civilizations, or when we talk about creation stories and the rituals and sacrifices and wars that happened, this is all what has taken place to bring us to this moment. It is the drama of human existence, and to me, it's extremely beautiful. So what we're going to do right now is take a few breaths together and just keep in mind the whole of the Yucatan Peninsula, right? You can expand it to the earth, you can do what you feel, but we're going to expand it to whole the Yucatan Peninsula, and in this moment send our collective intention and vibration out to the peninsula, to the descendants there, to the history there, to the sacredness there, to whatever has happened in that area for that to even occur, and give thanks to the fact that we could sit here right now on this webinar and listen to information about the ancient past through images and videos. Like, how amazing is that? So okay, everybody, I invite you all now just to take a few normal breaths. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. Keep breathing in and out. And if you would like to, you can let out a little sigh when you let out your breath. Ah. Now imagine the whole of the Yucatan Peninsula and now travel back in time hundreds of years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. And as we go back in time, we see the population of our bird's eye view of the Yucatan increase and increase and increase till we go all the way back when there was around 20 million people living in this area. Thriving civilization with trade, interaction with other city states around them. See these beautiful pyramid structures, architecture that was utilized. And as we breathe, we cultivate gratitude in our hearts for the human story and the Maya, their involvement in our collective evolution, the stories that they shared with us, the calendar that they shared with us. And we allow the gratitude and the thanks, the reverence to come out and emanate from our being, from every cell in our body, from our hearts, to every descendant of the Maya, to the ancestors of the Maya, and then out into the entire world and into the cosmos, into our galactic origins and the species that assisted in the creation of human race. Take another deep breath in and let it out with a sigh. Ah. Infinite gratitude and thanks to all of creation for this now moment. And so it is. Okay, now this spoken word piece here that I'm going to do, let me pull it up. This one's called Secret History. I'm going to do 2 spoken word pieces and we're going to call it a day. This one's called Secret History. Secret History. It's the perception of mind, intertwined with the channeled find of adolescence redefined cosmic knowledge of why we exist in a matrix-like environmental delusional, confused by all my thoughts manifest in dimensions that only exist in my mentality. That is hard to believe. Close your eyes and you will see vibrations of synergy, anatomical chronicles of rules and laws. Find the meaning for a truer cause, mind over matter, ancient druid, matter over mind. We give meaning to objects in materialistic ways. So we no longer embrace our internal world. Look within and realize there is no good or evil, and sin to me never calls. Jump down the rabbit hole and free fall. Spread knowledge to all. Do not convince, only guide the spirits with angelic intentions. When we realize the nature of reality, you will be mentioned in my eulogy. Gases that we cannot breathe, ancient artistic interpretations of peoples and trees, concentrated on gods that we now question. It's the only life lesson. Welcome to the revolution called Ascension. Welcome to the revolution called Ascension. So are we one yet? Going back to source. No remorse when reinforce the course that we all endorse. Unconditional love. It's the highest vibration, a gift from above. Desolation of separation. We must be the ones to say this is enough. You see, the 3rd dimension, it was meant to be tough. No captivity, so unlock the cusp. Move away from hate and begin to trust. Our thoughts shift the earth crust into a straight axis. Just like in Atlantis, stop causing damage and learn to manage self-realization. When people start to vanish when we change our intentions and join the like-minded souls in the 5th dimension, this is the beginning of our oversoul mission. What is it that you envision for the future incarnations? The Christ consciousness has arisen to the perception of being in a prison, this industrial system, slumber of opposites. Duality where we get lost and forget how to achieve liberation. The curiosity won't last for long at all. As we move to the aquatic age, break free from the third-dimensional cage of limitations, Freemasons being misplaced in this illusionary reality. Governing authorities, there will be no more war. Co-creator love ambassador, open the wars. Life isn't supposed to be a chore. No getting on your knees, worshiping entities from the floor. The message is simple, man. We don't need to know anymore. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. Love you all very much. Have a beautiful night. I'll send out the replay to you guys probably by tomorrow. And stay tuned for more. There's a lot coming up. And please do email me if you want to share any information. If you feel like I missed something that I should add to this presentation, you have some insight as well. And definitely email me if you want to go to this tour, because I'm waiting another month to a month and a half to see how things manifest. But then we're going to start collecting the deposits and create this, tour, because it's truly what I've been wanting to do for years now. And I just can't wait to take people down there and share the excitement and the beauty of everything. Hey, everybody. Have a beautiful night. Portal to Ascension, over and out. Love you all. Take care. Bye-bye.